Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 269. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I'm the one really behind the events that happened in Flashpoint. So says the reverse sensei of the Whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
So what did you do?
Well...
Because I want to know.
You're going to have to wait.
Okay. It's an issue 5?
It's an issue 5.
The big reveal?
Everything will be explained in the end.
If I actually opened up issue 5 of Flashpoint and saw you in there, I'd be the only one that would get it. There'd be a bunch of other readers that would be going, who the heck is this guy?
Who's this idiot? Yeah.
Wait, could you imagine the forum chatter on that one?
Oh my God, that'd be wonderful.
They had some other guy who's not even a... What the... This issue, we're joined by this episode. You usually do that. And I'm going to let it go just because of that. I always catch you on it. This episode, we are joined by longtime friend of the show from the blog and podcast of OA, Myron Rumsey, as we discuss Flashpoint number 4 in detail and our own thoughts about each of the characters, the miniseries, and who we'd have on our Justice League in the Flashpoint world. We also have, Jim, you and I do a cool casual comic chat, talking about a lot of Vertigo chat. We also talk about a few of the upcoming titles in the Dark line that they've been teasing on their Teen Titans as well, that we're talking about, and just, how we're collecting Vertigo and books. We don't get a chance to talk too much Vertigo, and I wanted to chat about that at least a little bit casually. Then we have an in-depth discussion about Superman Grounded, the final issue of it, 214 from Superman, and how that series all wrapped up. So a lot of events that we had a chance to really talk about in this episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Want to remind everyone that from DCBService.com, our sponsors, all 52 DC number 2 issues are at a special discount. You can try all 52 number 2 issues for 50% off, regularly $159.48, 50% off only $79.74, and there are discounts available for the individual issues too if you're not getting all 52. But they're going to be doing a special on issue number 3 as well. I don't know if it's going to be the same special, but they did say in the blurb that look for a special next month on DC's number 3 issues. I really appreciate that myself, because when you start taking a look at the fact that, for the show, we're ordering all 52 number 1 issues, all 52 number 2 issues, it's... for anybody who's trying out books, and I'm talking about any of our listening audience as well, who are trying out these books, you have to pre-order them enough in advance before you've gotten the first issue of those titles. So they're taking that into account and trying to support their customers. I think that's really great. And, especially with this being such a, thing like, I don't know what books I'm going to like out of them, if I want to keep all of them, if I want to, break down some of them. We have some voicemails on there where listeners are talking about, I don't know if I can, get all 52 issues, that type of thing. This is a great way for people to say, hey, I'm going to try these out for a couple of months and then make my decisions on what titles I want to follow. And DCB Service is supporting that. So I just wanted to shout that out because I think it's just a really cool deal that they're offering over at DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, our next episode, we are going to be talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 1. And if you haven't had a chance to grab it yet, you can get it from InStockTrades.com. It's regularly $14.95, 38% off only $9.27. So for under $10, you can join us for that discussion. Looks like we're going to do it in 2 segments. We're going to do issues 1 through 3 on the first segment, and then issues 4 through 6 on the second segment of the show. So it's going to be 2 different episodes, but we're starting next week for sure. So if you haven't had a chance to grab that, remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. And this is a classic by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, please do, because it's super cool and a lot to talk about. I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support the show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if we're going over some you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You are very animated. See, I haven't been in the same room with you doing this in a while. You've really got your own little swagger. And I would call it the Sensei swagger.
Hey, you gotta strut sometimes.
Yeah, we really should have you standing. We'd get like a King Tut thing going on like Steve Martin did.
Here's the scary part. Yeah. I do this every single time.
I know, but it's far more interesting for me to actually see it.
When when no one's around me, this is just who I am. I gotta do this.
Dude, I'm not disputing you. I'm just saying, for me, it was far more entertaining to actually see it here. So on that note, let's talk some comics.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Jim, before we get into talking about Superman Grounded, the final part, I want to talk about Nathan Thomas, Nathan from Comic-Con, our good old friend. He brought up some interesting points on Facebook today, and I was having a fun little debate with him, which I always enjoy. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because this is always interesting to me. He said that one of the things he noticed as we're coming to the end of the current runs of a lot of the books, he said that because certain things didn't matter, like death, for example, if a character died and they could just reappear again in September, it didn't strike him as strong as it would. Are you finding that you're having that experience as things wrap up? Because to me, I guess what I've been enjoying has been just the care that creators have put into wrapping up storylines. I'm glad this is something where it wasn't done just out of the blue and creators didn't have time to finish things up for us and tie things up into a nice, neat bow. But what's been your experience? Like, he brought up, for example, Lucius Fox and Donna Troy, which were two deaths that I guess I never took seriously as being deaths anyway. But what is your take on that?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you on Donna Troy and Lucius. I knew from the start that they weren't. One, I knew Lucius was a complete setup, and I didn't think Donna would stay dead. Even reboot aside, I didn't think it was going to kill her. I figured there would be something where she was not going to be dead. We weren't losing Donna at the end of the story, and that was more of just because with the hero thing. Now, with some of the titles, though, you think about the whole Green universe. Mm-hmm. Logo's dead. He's gone. When the reboot happens, they're not going to bring him back because that story's continuing on exactly where it left off. Only changes they're kind of shifting everybody's age. So with a title like that, dead is dead. And I think with a title like Secret Six, where we saw where I'm still convinced that the female Dr. Light is dead. And I don't think in the revamped universe she's going to be back. I think dead, she's a gone character. And I think that's going to be another dead that's actually going to count. Now,
here's the question. Actually, when you're talking about the shifting in ages, what do you think that's going to look like in the Green Lantern universe? Because I guess I don't feel like since Hal came back in Rebirth, I haven't felt like Hal's an old fart. You know what I mean? Or anything like that. Just being honest. none of those characters. Jon Stewart, I would guess, out of all of them, to me, feels like he's the most wizened. I don't know, just he's had a lot of life experience. And I don't know that you would really take any of that away from him. So I guess, how much do you think the ages are going to shift? Like Kyle Rayner. He's not an old guy. So, and when I say old, I don't consider Kyle to be near Batman's age or anything like that. So I wonder, do you think there's going to be a shift in Kyle's age, for example?
I think Kyle's going to be the same age as Dick Grayson, kind of a college age. Maybe fresh out of college age. I'm not exactly sure where Grayson's going to be at. Hal is probably going to be around the same age as what Superman and Batman are going to be. So he will be a little bit younger, but it's not going to be a dramatic change.
I'm going to disagree. Superman, I agree with you on. I guess I'm going to have to contradict myself here. Batman, isn't the premise going to be that Batman's been operating? Like when he meets the Justice League for the first time, I'm talking about in the Justice League arc that goes back 5 years. He will have been operating already as kind of an urban legend. Isn't that the premise that they're going off of for Justice League? So isn't he older than the rest?
Yeah, he may. Well, I'm just thinking probably Bruce started at a younger age because of his obsession and his commitment to the mission. I think we're going to see Bruce got started as a college-age student. As a college-age person, and instead of traveling the world and training with all these great masters, which he probably still did, because that's a key of Batman. I don't think because in my head, let me explain my thought process. I always took it that Bruce started his mission in maybe 30, maybe 35. In that kind of process. He had a full lifetime and he was training the whole time. I think this time...
Legends of the Dark Knights. Oh, you're talking about his... I'm sorry. Let me correct myself here. You meant his time as Batman.
Yeah, I'm talking...
Did you read Year One?
Yes, but it's been so long, I really don't remember.
Year one, to me, I'm almost positive year one's... Well, I know year one's got to still be in canon. He was younger than you think.
Okay. Because I always took it that he started in his 30s, and he's now almost 40. Yeah. Is how I took it, because I know some 40-year-olds who are, who are really in shape and who are physically fit, myself included. With that,
Well, you are an Adonis, and that's
I am. Yeah. When I was in, I was in Italy, I was constantly mistaken for the statues there.
Narcissist of the whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But seriously, I always took that Bruce was a little bit older than everybody else, anyways, just because. He had to spend a lifetime of training. And I think this one, he's going to start earlier. He's still going to have that same intense level of training, but I see it that, this Bruce Wayne, probably started, the actual conditioning for Batman as, high school age. And he really wasn't, a known kid. He probably was the kid, he probably had this aloof attitude back then that he wasn't, very social.
They're not changing his origin, you know that.
I know, but he's. I think they're going to have it changing where he's starting younger, and when I say starting younger, I mean starting in the.
They don't need to. They don't need to change that because he started younger than you think.
Okay, yeah. So if he started younger than I think, then sure.
I think what's going to happen. I think where the change is going to be is on the back end, not on the front end with him. I think all the stories happened on the front end the way they did for Bruce, but like, for example, the Robin progression happened at a faster pace than what we've seen.
Yeah.
And there is, it's funny, at first I was thinking, but that's a lot of stuff to happen, but if you take a look at the fact that, okay, a 30-page comic book, if you take that time and compress that into being like a couple of days, the stuff that happened in a monthly comic book, and say, there's a lot of off-camera time that we don't see. Well, now you can fill that off-camera time with the next issue, the next issue, the next issue. And a lot more happens in a month than we realize.
Yeah.
So a number of issues could have happened in a month. Like an arc could have happened in a month. Except for things like No Man's Land and stuff like that. But, so it's just going to be, a compression that these things happen just faster than we think. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Have you been following the source and taking a look at, like, the Titans previews and stuff like that?
I occasionally jump on there. I'm trying to do more, but I just... Have
you seen Red Robin?
Yeah, I've seen some of them, yeah.
Like the way the wings spoot out of his back and stuff like that?
I haven't seen that part.
Oh, yeah. They have some Brett Booth artwork on there. You got to go check it out because it's funny. That was probably the one costume I was really uncomfortable with. And just seeing the look on his face again, it reminds me of what I've always liked about Tim Drake, how Tim Drake was kind of like that bright streak in the Bat Family. And it's something that, remember we talked about it during Red Robin, it was nice to see him eventually get back to that, being a little bit more on that side of the fence than the darkness that had overcome him earlier on. And that was good storytelling. I liked the way that it all went down. But I was glad to see him kind of get back to himself. This really is him getting back to the Tim Drake we always loved. The wings, like, it's like a backpack kind of thing almost, but it's like hidden. It's like in the sense like there's like padding on the back of the coat.
Yeah. And then
and the way that they would fan out, it's like very believable when you look at it. I'm like, okay, if they are, each of the wings is like a blade kind of style thing, they could fold over each other and be something that would be able to flatten to like form a frame in his coat and then spurt out of the back like that. It just looks super cool. And when you see him, it's like a glider.
Nice. So I like that. Again, it's when... you start changing costumes or changing looks. As long as I still get that same, Tim, I'll be happy. And so if what you're saying looks like is the case, then I think maybe I'm still going to get my same Tim. So it's, with a lot of the stuff I was like, I got to wait and read the story. I got to wait and see what I get before I make the final call and the final decision on it. But with the change with the wings, the feathering of them, I never had an issue with that. Just because he was, things were changing around on him, and I'm like, let's see what we got going on, and Sean's right now pulling up a picture of him actually, activating the wings.
I mean, doesn't that look cool?
Yeah, that looks kind of neat, and it's the collapsible coming out and just. I can kind of hear the sound effects already in my head, a little Transformer, action going on. So I want to see this, title, and it's something that I'm looking forward to, and something it's an interesting curiosity going on, and I don't know, it's weird with Titans because I loved where the story was going, and there was so many,
too.
Even though they had a great ending on the story and a really neat, wrap up, there was still more where this story can go, this team could go. So I'm kind of sad that I'm not getting those stories, but I am curious to see where they go with this, and I want to see the Titans.
See, when you see Tim in those sequences, though, I'm like, oh my god, that is so Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really well. It's funny how, like, the cover. I don't know how well you can see that from where you're at, but the cover sequences when I originally saw them, you're talking about an isolated static image of him in this brand new winged costume. I'm like, what are they doing? But now that I'm seeing interior images and seeing where they're going, and it wasn't. And I want to clarify, it's not that the cover artwork was bad. It was very good artwork, but it's a drastic change without like you being able to see story progression to see like, okay, how does this work? Why this? Which we still don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if they're going to go into the costume and how that all came about. I'm getting into it though, which I'm pleasantly surprised because I figured that was going to be the one where I was drastically going to have to wait. And
it does look like he has some functionality that he's using with the wings, and just it's not just a glider, it's not just a decorative piece. There's actually going to be some probably weapons aspect that he's going to even use it. And so again, curious to see where they go with Tim on this.
You into this whole live vampire thing?
Yeah.
The Joshua Hale Vialkov? I know I'm butchering his name. It's part of that dark lineup, but I am not familiar. I know it's a classic DC character, iVampire, but it's not one of those characters I'm familiar with. I'm excited for this because it's something different.
Yeah, I'm a vampire freak, so I enjoy this, and curious to see where this goes. Any vampire stories, I always give them a shot, and I always give them. I probably will be even more lenient on this because I know with a good vampire, you got to build the lore, you got to build the character behind them. So with that title, I'm going to give it some leeway. I gave the Twitter, the Twinkling Vampires, a shot. With the Twilight. That's it, Twilight. And that whole thing, I gave that story.
Twitter vampires.
Yeah.
It's a whole gang of them. They get together and they tweet while they suck blood.
Yeah. And it was funny because even those stories...
Sucking on a bum now. Meet me in the alley. Shout out to my peeps. I got 40,000 followers, but half of them are dead.
Dead or undead?
Oh, that's true. It's Justice League Dark's another one that I'm starting to look forward to. This Constantine back in the... First of all, I'm thrilled to death that this doesn't affect the Vertigo series. Because I've gotten very into the Peter Milligan Vertigo series. So I give him credit for not feeling like you have to derail one thing to have another. That to me, it's always about using the characters, and that's it's funny when this kind of goes back to my whole thing on Nathan was talking about death in comics and does dead mean dead and that type of thing. What is your take on that? Do you care if characters come back to life, or are you pretty adamant on that? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. There's a lot of people who are very adamant because we go to enough cons that people go up to the con mic and you hear this all the time. Does dead really mean dead?
My theory on dead, and if a character is going to come back, I want their return to be as monumental as their departure. For example, the way the Flash died, Barry Allen died with that great just running, and just how that was an epic, heroic moment. I wanted his return to be an epic, heroic moment. Hal Jordan flying into the sun, saying the Green Lantern oath as he detonates his body, recharging the sun. That was a heroic moment. Rebirth, a heroic moment of his return. That was, I felt those, boom, right there.
The only danger with that is you run into an issue where it starts to become cliche. Like, character has to have epic death, has to have epic return. I like all those stories too. So I'm saying amen to you on the stories you're liking. I agree with. To me, first of all, I'm against limiting what creators can do in comics. Now, if you're like you say you're writer A, okay, and I'm writer B. I want to bring back a character, but you just killed the character, and you've got a major storyline going on revolving around that character's death. This is something where, you've got like years of payoff to the character's death that's really going to play heavily into, your overall long-term goal. Well, that's a character that's a dead character that's off the table.
Yeah.
I can't use that character. On the other hand, if there's a character that's been shelved for whatever reason, and I've got a great story idea, and I'm not talking about like a 4-issue story. I'm talking about I've got a return story plan, but long-term plans where bringing this character back is going to make my book a lot more interesting. I personally believe any toy that was ever created should be able to be played with, revamped, reutilized again for the sake of good storytelling.
Yeah.
So does dead mean dead? God, I hope not. Again, not the revolving door thing where you just kill them and bring them back. See, that's where I don't want it to necessarily be a cliche thing we expect. They're going to get an epic death, and 2 years later we're going to get them back in an epic return. I don't know that we necessarily need, like, tons of that. But Barry Allen, was he brought back for the sake of an epic return? No, he was brought back for the sake of Jeff Johns wanted to use him. And had some long-term plans for him. Hal Jordan, same thing. Why was Hal brought back? Jeff Johns had some long-term plans for him. I think that to me is ultimately how they return and how they die is less important to me than the use of it. How are they going to use it? Well, Barry Allen's death. It wasn't just his death that was interesting. It was the reaction to it afterwards. All those Wally West issues that we got. Why is Wally West loved so much? Because we got to follow him trying to come out of Barry's shadow. So that was a death that was worthwhile. But now that Barry's, I'm a deep-hearted Wally fan, so saying this, people are like, what are you talking about? But Wally's thing ran its course. It was one of those things where people were very critical of. You and I both liked Mark Waid's last run.
Yes.
On The Flash. We both enjoyed that, the family one. But that was one that was, a lot of people were very critical of. And, I don't understand it because I really enjoyed it, but I can't come from that standpoint. What I'm saying is they saw that, okay, we're not getting the Flash fans rallying behind the things we're trying, so let's try something new with Barry. So that was what that's why is Barry back? Because they were trying something different. I don't know what that means for Wally, but...
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad I get my Flash back.
Yeah.
Bart's back.
That's true, yeah. Bart's going to be in Teen
Flash.
Titans. Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I'm happy. Forget all you Wally people.
Are you reading Hellblazer? Go back to Justice League Dark?
No. I pick up some trades here. I pick up some stories when he's in the DC aftermath, and I think he's an interesting, cool character. So anytime I read a story, I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in a regular title.
Swamp Thing Aftermath book is really a lot what the character's like in his own book. Yeah. I'm a late bloomer to Constantine. He's one of those characters that I've read a couple trades, and I've read some runs here and there. But since Peter Milligan took over, it was the first time that I really read the book and gave it a long-term chance. And I've really been digging it. He's really got a great vibe on the character. It's a good jumping-on point. So for anybody out there who's like, geez, I've got to go back and read all of Hellblazer in order to get into it, you don't really need to. You can jump on a Peter Milligan's run. Just enjoy that. And then if you find that you really like the character, you can go back and seek things out. But you don't need to know like tons of backstory. It's pretty easy to figure out who this guy is and what he does.
Yeah, and I've picked up individual trades, some of the hardbound stories that they had with him. And every time I read them, I like them. Every time I like the character. It's just for some reason, I never went and got the monthly title. I never started reading the monthly title. And then when they announced that he was going to be here, I figured, okay, well, I'm going to see what happens in this title. Maybe this will be my Constantine title, and I won't go to the other one.
What are you reading monthly from? Are you reading anything monthly from Vertigo, or are you strictly trade?
No, I'm doing monthly.
Which ones are you?
Let's see here. No, that got
DMZ
canceled.
still?
That got canceled. No. Hold on. Let's see. No, I think I'm back on. No.
iZombie?
I'm still doing iZombie, and
which is brilliant.
Yes, and I'm still doing American Vampire.
I'm one issue behind on iZombie.
Yeah. So that's my Vertigo titles right now. I was going with House of Mystery, and I was stockpiling so much. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do trade.
Northlanders, you went to?
Yeah, that's trades, and that's even sporadic trades. I'm not even as active as I was.
Scalped?
Same thing, sporadic trades, and what it came down to is I'm going to pick what I'm getting, and I was mostly focusing on DCU.
Have you read The Unwritten?
I have it, but I haven't read it yet.
Well, that's one I'm reading monthly that I really enjoy.
Well, you kept talking about it, and I kept reading other people talking about it, so I went and I have like the first 3 trades of Unwritten that I have, and I haven't sat down and read them yet. That's part of the reason why I'm not getting as much Vertigo, because I'm finding I was having less time, to read the stuff. So I was like, you know what? I made the call. I'm like, I'm going these
not an
two
issue
titles.
of quality, an issue
it's
of
got
just
nothing
time.
to do with quality. It had to do with time. And I was Madame Xanadu was always going to be there. And then when they canceled that series, I'm like, okay, then that sold it for me. Then I'm just going with zombie and vampire, and that's it.
iZombie's terrific.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that.
See,
It's great,
Fables, I know that there's I think it's called Fairest. I think it's what somebody on Facebook mentioned it. I think Fairest is going to be the new Fable spinoff. I don't know if that's going to be a monthly or if it's going to be a mini. I'm a big Fables fan. I'm behind on Fables, and it's my own. It's not, I don't want to say it's my own fault because it makes it sound like it's a negative thing. I decided to go back and start rereading it right from the get-go because it had been so long since I read the original issues that I went back, and it's like 100 and something issues in at this point, and I've got them all. It's one of those titles I end up stockpiling, not because of it's because of time, like you mentioned. Well, and time in the fact that I'm going back and rereading it just for personal enjoyment because I've only read them once, and I like reading things a couple of times. Like iZombie, I read each of those issues a couple of times.
Yeah.
American Vampire, same thing. Unwritten, same thing. House of Mystery, same things. I've been following that all along as it's been coming through. It was funny. I was ahead on Jack of Fables. And then I was behind on Fables, so I decided to go back from the get-go and start with Fables again right from the beginning and read everything and get kind of caught up chronologically in order just because I'm digging the storyline so well. But I read the book, Peter and Max, which that novel, Peter and Max, that Fables story, is a really good one. Like if you're somebody who's like, I kind of want to try out Fables, and I'm itching for jonesing for a novel. Peter and Max is isolated. It's its own story, and you don't need to have read any of Fables to understand it. It actually predates a lot of it, so it's a good, accessible story. It's like when you get a good beginning, middle, and ending. There's nothing that you need to know. If you've been reading Fables, there's characters you're going to recognize in it, but it's not something where you need any. It was a very well crafted novel to be one of those. So anybody that's looking for a place to kind of get a vibe and feel for Fables, that prose novel is really a good spot. It's a good book. So that's one for kind of a recommendation out there. I love Vertigo. It's one of those great lines that I'm glad to see. They said this year, it was one of the panels, and I'm hoping it's... I want to clarify this. I'm hoping it's something else besides Fairest, because I would like to see a couple more monthlies coming from Vertigo, because we've lost, a DMZ ending and stuff like that. DMZ, are you behind on? Is that one of your
I'm behind
trades?
On it, massively behind, and
I started late on DMZ, so I've got all the issues of DMZ, but I'm stockpiled on that one too, not because...
Well, DMZ was a funny one where I started off on trade, and I was doing the trade thing, and I'm like, there's no way I can wait anymore. So then I went back to monthly. I'm like, I'm like, that neurosis in me kicked in. So I went and I got from the beginning of DMZ, so I went back and, hit the, dove in the bins at some of the cons and, online and whatnot, and I got completely the full monthly run up to a point, and I'm going monthly, I'm reading monthly, and then something happened in DCU, and I started stockpiling again. I'm like, oh no! Now I have a combination of the full monthly run, a stockpile of some trades, and I am all over the place with DMZ. I think what I need to do is just pick one of the mediums, either all monthly or all trades, and just go with that and make.
You still don't mix and match?
Well, actually, DMZ I'm mixed and matched, and it's driving me nuts. I need to actually pick one of the two, and I'm probably going to go with the trade route and just make sure I have a full solid trade run of all of DMZ.
See, that's one area where it's funny. I can easily do like trades and single issues together because I consider those kind of the same format, the paper format. I don't see myself doing like issue 1 paper, issue 2 digital, issue 3 paper. I couldn't see doing that. That would bug me, kind of the way you're talking about. You follow me?
Dude, that would drive me absolutely insane.
Yeah, well, and to me it's always about being able to read it, but it is funny how, like, I would want to be able to read my entire run in one format.
Yeah.
Like, I could see me following an entire, like, well, the Uniques. That was one I was on Ian Levinstein's podcast, Comic Timing, and we were talking to the creators of Uniques. Well, I picked up the issues on their website. They have legal digital downloads. You pay for them, 99 cents an issue. So I went there and I got them their CBR format. So I downloaded them and I put them on my iPad. And because I started following it in that format, I'm just going to keep following it in that format. I really like it. It's kind of nice. I don't see myself then going and saying, well, next issue I'm going to pick up in paper.
Yeah.
It's just not. That would bug me. So I get your vibe.
Yeah.
And I used to have that issue too with trades and paper. I don't know why I don't now. I can easily mix and match. To me, as long as I've got all the issues, it's for the story. I've got to have the story.
Yeah, and I don't know. And I could say, well, I'm getting better with it, but I did the same thing with Jonah Hex. Mm-hmm. When I really got committed to Jonah, I went back and I got all the
singles.
All the singles.
See, and I've got singles and trades.
Yeah.
Now, like over half the run is singles because I read it monthly. Really, when I started talking on the show heavily about how much kind of saying to you, you're not reading Jonah Hex?
Yeah.
I was monthly then.
Yeah.
On the book.
Yeah, I know. It's and it's just the way I am. It's the little quirk that I have going on, and hey, it is who I am. I'm happy with it. I deal with it, and it's funny because that's one of the things I'm kind of happy about this whole changeover with this all issue. I'm starting issue 1. I'm starting fresh. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm locked in on this. I'm set here, and it's funny. I'm even like, organizing my comics differently. Mm-hmm. What I do is when the title ends, I file it in a different location than where the active files are.
Like Alabama or something?
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I have a section of Marvel,
right,
and then I have a section of dead titles. Then I have a section where it's the monthlies, and the special event type of stuff. Well, now with everything rebooting, I'm taking all my DC and putting it separate, and the 1s and 2s, they're now going to start a whole separate filing system.
Even though some of them are continuing the continuity.
Even though the story's continuing.
Although, see, to me... See, technically, I'm seeing the whole relaunch differently now. I'm not taking a look at it as a new continuity. I'm really taking a look at it as like Flashpoint happened and the continuity continues on in September. I'm, especially now that I've got more information. Whereas when they first announced this, I was looking at, wow, September we're going to have a whole brand new continuity. And I'm not saying any of this negatively. I'm super excited.
And honestly, I'm seeing it. We are seeing things on the exact same side. Yeah. But for some reason, in my head, I'm able to justify this change. And it's kind of like, in a way, it's sort of freeing for me. I'm like,
well, from a collector's standpoint,
I don't have to worry
you have
about
new numbering.
This. And it's completely new numbering, new filing, and I'm trying to change stuff around and make room. And I think, it's going to make things a little easier for me.
So have you changed your mind on the whole Action Detective Comics thing that you mentioned way back?
Which?
You said you were like, those are the 2 books that you really were upset that were going to be starting at number 1. Remember back when we originally had the initial discussion? You're like...
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it's weird because...
No, I'm hearing your enthusiasm now, so...
There are moments when I have absolutely no issue with it now.
Okay.
And I mean, and you just heard my excitement over, this is a new, fresh start. This is cool. And I'm like, and then when I stop and think about Action Comics number 1, see, one of my personal goals in my life, thing on my bucket list, is to be in the presence of an original Action Comics number 1. I don't have to own it. I don't have to touch it. I just want to be in the direct presence of Action Comics number 1.
Do you want to salivate on it?
No. I just want to. It's like I'm
kidding.
I want to be in the presence of the Mona Lisa. Mm-hmm. That's another thing in my life. Yeah, I want to be in the present. I got to.
I want to read it though. See, that's the funny part. Like for me, being in the presence of it, I don't care if I got to read it with tweezers. For me, I want to read the story. I would love to see the pages, the actual physical pages turning, that type of thing.
If I could do that, that would be huge. And I would be like, oh my God. I'd be like, freaking out. And I'd be
I don't care if I got to wear like a comic book hazmat suit.
But I don't need, if I was just in its presence, it's, as I said, the Mona Lisa, I got, there's other just things that I want to be, that kind of
its presence wouldn't be enough for me.
It would
now hang on. I think it's super cool to be sitting there, like some collectors got it like hermetically sealed, and I get to look at it, from a distance. Yes. That would be cool, sure, absolutely, and I would be giddy over that. So don't get me wrong on that, but there would be that part of me that would be walking away. Darn, I wish I could read that. Because that's, to be able to turn the pages, see what, any kind of advertisements decide to look like, that type of stuff. That's the kind of stuff You know, and somehow I'd like to smell the paper. You know, all that old paper smell, all that kind of crazy nonsense. I get into that stuff.
Hold on, we're in complete agreement how cool that would be. But for me, I'm not. I'm making my bucket list possible because I don't think it'll be really possible and reasonable to think that maybe I would be able to own it or read it, just because anybody who has it, they're going to protect it. They're not going to just let any idiot come up and read it.
Right. Is somebody shooting at us?
I don't think those are gunshots. I'm pretty sure those are firecrackers, probably. Maybe a Roman candle, but that's kind of loud for a Roman candle. So I don't know. But it didn't sound like a gunshot.
Okay. Well, I was joking anyway. I didn't really think people were shooting at us. I'd be like, duck. I'd be out of the room.
Dude, hold on. You know me.
Yeah.
I would be like, gun, hit the ground. First thing I would do, I would be
I've been with you where you said that.
You know me.
I've actually been in that situation with you. It was in a car, as a matter of fact.
Hey. Never claimed to be the bravest man in the world.
Matter of fact, you were the one I think that shouted out it was a gun.
No, that was not me.
Oh, was that Bill?
That was Bill.
Okay. Maybe someday we'll share that story.
Yeah.
Rather lengthy one. So in September, I'm very interested in that. The Vertigo thing, though, it's funny. Like Hellblazer, I'm following monthly, and I'm reading monthly. I get behind, like you mentioned, like Stockpile. I get behind an issue or two on that book. Most of my Vertigo books, like the ones with the lower numbers right now, like House of Mystery and Unwritten and iZombie and American Vampire, stuff like that I've read since issue 1. I'm up to date on. Scalped, I started late. I started late on Fables. Jack of Fables, I started right when it came out, so I stayed up to date on that one. But the books that I started late on, like DMZ, that type of thing, I'm behind. I read like a trade every other month. I'll read a Vertigo trade from something that I haven't been caught up on. So that's keeping me stockpiled, because it's hard to get kind of caught up when you're because I'm switching between titles. Like it'll be Fables one month, it'll be DMZ the next month, it'll be Scalped the other month. Northlanders, I'm caught up on, because I love that series. I read since number 1. I'm sad to see that one being canceled. But the cool thing about that book is it's always been contained story arcs.
Yeah.
So you could really jump on at any point in time. You could stockpile at any point in time. So there were some times where I'd finish a Northlanders arc. If things got hectic and stuff and I wasn't able to get caught up with it, I'd just let the arc complete, whether it was a 3-issue arc or 4 or 5-issue arc, whatever, and then I would read the arc. And there were some of them, though, that went back, like that Sven.
Yeah.
Did you read the sequel to that one?
No.
Oh, there was he came, that initial Sven arc?
Yeah.
He comes back again later in the series and has another story. So, there are characters that will reappear again in Northlanders. And that book is, for anybody, if you're into, Vikings and all that, it's more grounded in reality than
it's a definite realistic,
like a Thor or that type of thing. Now, that's not knocking Thor. Thor's a superhero book, This is more of a historical fiction piece, which I really dig. I love the research he's done for that. It just feels very authentic. I don't, what do I know from that? I'm not an expert on Viking history, but it just feels authentic to me. I don't know if you got that same vibe when you were
definitely
reading it.
got the same vibe, and that was one that I was really enjoying, and I stopped getting it. Not because of quality. It literally was. There was a point in time when I realized I had too many titles I was reading. I was reading everything, and as cool as that sounds, to read everything is awesome. But you know what? You got time limitations. You got financial limitations.
And you're reading.
There's a lot going on that I was like, you know what? I need to cut some stuff. I need to drop some stuff. I need to focus. And for me, the easiest things to drop was the Vertigo titles, because I was so focused and so tied into the DCU.
So you trimmed down some of those.
Yeah. So they, and it was the same reason that I cut the Wildstorm titles all those years ago when I dropped the Wildstorm
to prioritize the main superhero universe.
It was the same exact reason, and that's part of the reason why I'm glad to see these Wildstorm characters come back and be in the DCU. I'm like, yes, because I really enjoyed those characters. I thought those were some cool stuff going on. So I'm like, all right, I get to read these guys again, because once again, if I stay focused on the 52 titles, I'm still good.
Are you reading stuff outside of DC?
Yeah, there's a couple stuff.
What do you?
Well, reading both Incorruptible and Irredeemable, but I'm reading those in trade.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm flat out. I've stayed loyal in trade. The Boys I'm reading in trade. Let's see here, and the Dracula Company of Monsters, picking that up.
Have you read any of IDW Star Trek stuff?
You know what? I picked up a couple of the stories, and for some reason, it was one of those. It was right around the time when I was doing some clipping. Same thing with Buffy,
Because they're minis.
Yeah. Same thing like with the Buffy and the Angel.
You didn't read all of season 8 of Buffy?
No.
Oh,
Buffy and
read
Angel
that.
got the axe because I had to clean house.
Yeah.
You know, there's. I'm trying to think of what other.
They're starting season
DC.
9.
I'm reading True Blood, which is
The minis?
The minis, because that's one. Because
Well, they've got actual show creators, I believe, that are... Because I read both of those as well, and I believe... Tishman, I believe it is. I'm reading so many titles, sometimes it's hard to put who's on what book. I think it's Tishman's the name of the...
Yeah, of course, Love and Capes.
They're really good.
Other.
Oh, yeah, Tom Zoller with Love and Capes.
That's one of those that's on the locked in that I can't see myself ever getting rid of that one.
Have you read any of Terry Moore's work?
I've read some, but I'm not actively...
His first issue of his new book, Rachel Rising, came out, and that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I'm digging that one a lot. I followed Echo. I followed Strangers in Paradise before that, so he's one of those creators that... He wrote, actually, an arc of Birds of Prey. He's done work over at Marvel. Runaways, which is really good. But, his independent stuff, Strangers in Paradise, is where I started with him. He's terrific. Jeff Smith, I read all of his stuff. Razzle, Bone...
Another non-DC title is Jennifer Blood.
Which one's that?
Oh, she's a female assassin who's got a personal axe to grind against some various mafiosa type people. They were her family, and it looks like they killed her father and various stuff to her, and she's kind of making payback. And it's a very adult title. It's very gruesome and very bloody, and it was something, for some reason, when I initially saw it, I was like, you know what? Something clicked, and every issue I read, I'm like, okay, I'm liking this. It reminds me so much of, the Boys type of style to it, and so, yeah.
I'm reading a lot of webcomics, too, like Pug, Zach Cruzy stuff, the two books that he's doing, the two webcomics that he's doing. Have you seen the new one he's doing? The one where he takes, I'm trying to think of what the term of it is. They're old comic strips that they're out of copyright, meaning you can use them now. Mm-hmm. What he's doing, I forget what you call that now. I'm like so drawing a blank. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna literally be done having this conversation out. The term's gonna come to mind. But he's taking the dialogue out, and he's putting in new dialogue and creating an ongoing story with it. It is hysterical. I'm going to have him come on, and we actually did a recording, and we got to actually re-record it, which I was having an issue with my internet here. So we're going to re-record it. I'm going to have him come on because I want to talk about that new book, but it's going to be in our webcomics. I actually tweeted about it, so it's in Twitter. The name's I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, just like I'm drawing a blank on a whole bunch of other things. Thieves and Kings is a book. I don't know if I mentioned it before. It was one of those that was... years ago, one of the comic magazines was raving about this, so I picked it up, started reading it. It was one of those where I picked it up in trade initially, because it was always one of those I meant to try, and then I picked it up in trade, and I liked it so much that I went back through and bought all the other trades, and then started following it in single issue. Well, then he went and remastered a couple of the later trades, or one of the later trades, and I picked up then the trades that I was missing just to have, like what you're talking about, the complete set. And now he's gone to trade. Like, there's not a single issue title anymore. He releases them in graphic novel format now. And I really dig that a lot. It's a cool book, Thieves and Kings. A lot of the ways I like Love and Capes. It's very different in a vibe and a feel. It's a lot of swords and sorcery with a lot of humor to it. You follow this little boy named Ruble, who's on this quest to save the princess. But it goes through a lot of his past history. There's a supporting cast. There's a rich town that's developed. And he does everything, the writing, the art, everything. It's a black and white book. It's terrific. So, I don't know. A lot of cool stuff. You and I never talk about...
And it's funny, because as you're throwing out web comics,
mm-hmm.
I got, of course we got the Battle Pug, but also Girls with Slingshots and Least I Can Do.
You reading Guns of Shadow Valley?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that as well, too.
That's a really good one.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of webcomics that, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something right now. I try to put webcomics up in the webcomic section whenever I come across them. If there's, for any of our listeners out there or friends of the show, if you got something to promote that, like, webcomic wise or comic wise, that you want me to put a link to up on our website, please let me know. I try to, a lot of times I'll find out about things via word of mouth. I like that kind of, I thought it'd be fun just to kind of do a casual chat real quick about some of the stuff that we're reading and enjoying, because we never really get an opportunity to do that.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
It is funny. We're joined by Myron Rumsey from the blog of OA and the podcast of OA, right? Which I'm so used to introducing you as just the blog of OA, but
it's the ever-expanding media universe.
Well, that's a good thing. You're basically everything Green Lantern. So for our listeners out there, Myron, obviously longtime friend of the show, and welcome back to Raging Bullets, buddy.
Thank you for having me back. We just as a website, we just celebrated our 2nd anniversary. So it's hard to believe it's hard to believe it's been 2 years. Wow. We just did. I shouldn't say we, because it's a one-man job. I have people that send me comments saying, "You guys are doing a great job." I'm like, "Yeah, you guys."
You're starting to believe it.
It's the royal we.
But I just did a site refresh, so the site has had a complete facelift. I don't know if you've been there lately, but
yes.
Complete facelift on the website, and just going forward and just having a lot of fun with it. The character's near and dear to my heart, and I want to give something back to the character and be a good ambassador for the character. You guys really set the tone for me and how you guys do your show, and you guys are such good ambassadors for the medium that I wanted to do the same thing for the characters I loved. So, it's when I have those moments where I feel overwhelmed, I look at, damn you, Sean and Jim. But really, thank you guys for being inspirational to me.
Thank you, actually, for the blog, though, because I got to be honest with you. A lot of the reason why I do this show is because of this really is my experience with comics. So to have locations that I can go to on the internet where I'm getting that kind of experience, something that's enhancing my enjoyment of a character, with your love, obviously, for Green Lantern and your history with the character. There's a lot of times there's things you'll be talking about on the website or mentioning on the website, some news tidbit I didn't catch, or, some commentary I didn't catch. It's really great to have that place to go to, one set spot. I love fan sites. I look at our show as a fanzine, because if we grew up all with the same things, I think we all grew up with the fanzine kind of concept.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of the your website follows that theme. Our show follows that theme. I like fanzines, and this is exactly. It's about uniting fans over something we have.
Sure, and there's a satisfaction, and you get an email from somebody saying, hey, I just discovered. In this case, I'm getting emails from people that have discovered the character through the movie, and where do I start reading the comics? Because I want to do that. Or I had a great story from in the podcast. I talked about using the toy power rings as a way to empower your kids to overcome their fears. And I got just a really touching email from a guy in England whose 4-year-old son he's given a power ring to. And so they've had all these conversations about overcoming fear and running around the backyard blasting bad guys. And it just makes you feel really good when you hear those kind of stories, how you maybe have been a part of somebody else's fan experience and added a dimension that they didn't have.
Am I the only one when Myron said that, like when he said empowering kids with power rings, that like imagine in his neighborhood there's kids running around fighting crime? Really, they're plastic.
but it's been just a great experience for that, and the podcast has been kind of an outcropping of enjoying being on your show. And William Giancoli, who is my co-host, has become a Green Lantern fan since Rebirth. So he and I have a dynamic, probably like your show had in the beginning, where Jim, you were just getting back into comics, and Sean, you're the grizzled veteran like I am. Very much that similar dynamic where he looks at it from a different perspective. He runs the Get Your Geek on Radio internet channel, which he's going to be retiring soon. He's going to all syndicated content and doing podcast stuff. This has kind of lit a bug for him as well. But he's my co-host, and so we've kind of just casually we're finding our identity. We were making lots of mistakes, I'm sure. but we're having fun, and like I said, we're finding our identity and having a good time, and that's really all that matters as far as we're concerned.
That's true of any podcast, though. For anybody out there who's thinking of podcasting or feels worried about podcasting, that's all we did when we first got started. And it's all your average podcaster. Everybody has this feeling out process that you go through, and the important thing is to just get in front of the mic. Don't be afraid to find your niche, where you're at, and it's a lot of times we're more critical of ourselves than the listeners are. Like they already are launching on because of your content. So, the Green Lantern fans that are listening to your podcast aren't feeling the same way you are. I'm speaking as somebody who's listening to it as a Green Lantern fan. So I'm sitting here listening to that. I'm like, I remember those days. Where,
And I don't know about you guys, but I hate to listen to myself. So I don't listen to the episodes because I don't want to hear myself.
I have a very hard time with that.
I have no choice.
Yeah.
I edit. It is hard, though, because it's I find that I'm really hypercritical of myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. There are times when if anybody listening, yells at your podcast at some of the stupid stuff I've said, I'm right there along with you, yelling at it, saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I said." Or I'll think of a better line that I could have said instead of that, or it's very hard for me to get through a full episode of ours because I am so critical of some of the stupid stuff I've said.
See, I don't feel that way with you, though. Like, I'll listen to your stuff, and I really like it. It's me that I am. And I think that's true of anybody, though. When you're doing anything and you hear yourself back, I think we all kind of get into that. We're really getting off track.
Yes.
I have those Chris Farley moments.
Okay, good.
After I said, I'm like, pound my head,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't. Oh. We've been accused of being the freak Chris Farley cast. This Flashpoint series has been... Now, Myron, you're reading, for the Flashpoint series, you're reading the main series, and you're also reading the Green Lantern-related titles. Is that correct? Meaning Hal Jordan and Abin Sur?
Yep, that's correct. Those are the only ones of the Flashpoint series I'm reading.
Are you finding that you're missing anything by reading it that way? Like, are like, geez, I feel like I'm... Because the way it's crafted, I can't imagine that you would be, but I can't speak to that experience.
Well, and it's funny. I was at my comic shop last week, and I ended up picking up the Batman series. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, is that good?
What I really kind of dig about this is I was a big fan of those What If books that Marvel used to do. Mm-hmm. And to me, I get that vibe from that. And so I'm probably going to pick up a lot of them in trade afterwards, just because I love that whole thing about what, change a little piece about a character's mythology and how does it ripple throughout the entire concept. So I'm probably going to go back and read those, but I didn't feel for the Flashpoint series proper I needed to go that way. I think of this as very much like Blackest Night, where you could read the main title and get the story, and then read the minis that you wanted to embellish the characters that you really had a love for.
Yeah, and some of the minis actually do kind of lead into, like they'll lead into the actual series, where there's a conclusion and lead into it, but not all of them do, and there's certainly none of them nothing that predates that you need to have read in order to understand the main story. I really like that. I actually really appreciate that approach. Because not all events, and there's nothing wrong with this, but not all events, are they able to collect in a way that makes logical sense? Because sometimes the way the events are crafted, some stories are essential to following the event. Other stories are side stories. So sometimes when they're collected in trade, they don't make sense chronologically to the story, if you guys are following me. This one, there's no reason why you can't just collect the minis separately. Like that Batman one, you haven't read it yet, but there's nothing like you need to have read from Flashpoint to understand it. You don't need to even be reading Flashpoint to enjoy that mini. It's Thomas Wayne as Batman and what it's like. It completely predates this. Well, I shouldn't say that. It kind of it's side story at the end.
It's at the end there. It shows why this Thomas Wayne is getting involved in the Flashpoint. You see his motivation behind him being Batman is, and just everything that he's gone through. And it's kind of that segue, if you will.
I'm going to spoil it for you. The Butler did it.
I felt obligated to read the Batman one because Jim, you and I called Thomas Wayne as Batman months ago when we were talking about Flashpoint. We were talking about the upcoming titles and what it could possibly be. You and I both called Thomas Wayne as Batman.
It's terrific. It is honestly. I don't want to say it's. there's so many of them that I think have been really good out of the whole. Like, you'll enjoy Emperor Aquaman, I think, Wonder Woman when it's done. The Green Lantern ones have been great. I don't know, has there been anything, Jim, that you found lacking in it? I've liked pretty much all of it. There's nothing I can think of. Project Superman, I'm really digging. That's edgy.
I have nothing lacking. I've probably a hierarchy. I could probably, if you give me a little while to think about it, I could come up with what I like at my top, what's my bottom. Mm-hmm. But none of the series I would say was bad.
Deathstroke was really good.
Oh, God, I love Deathstroke.
Yeah, which was one it was funny. I was reading that because of the writer, because Paul Miotti was writing it. And it's so, when it was delivered as a story, as it was going through. All of them did. They really did. There's not Lois Lane and the Resistance is good. So it's nice. Like you said, Myron, you can collect the ones that you want to collect and kind of go through that. Anyway, this series, though, I like the way that it's been shifting focus on a lot of the main characters. Like, in Fawcett City, we get to take a look at this group of kids who are coming together and debating, what should we do here? I mean, this is a world where heroes aren't organized. You're not used to seeing big superhero teams acting together against and being an inspiration against major criminals or major world events or major disasters, major threats. Whereas in our DC universe proper, it's very common to see not only the Justice League, but then see the JSA, then even see smaller teams kind of pop onto the scene, like the Outsiders, Doom Patrol, stuff like that, Teen Titans.
Yeah.
In this world, there's none of that. There's the Resistance, but the Resistance is really in small groups, underground, rebelling against, they're in the shadows, rebelling against things. Batman's here, but Batman's not an inspiration. Batman's frightening. In this, so it's really kind of a scary little world. But then we see these characters, these are really the brightest. I don't know, Jen, would you agree with this? These kids are arguably the brightest characters, and with what happened with Captain Thunder, that's not even so bright. Is there anybody brighter than them you can think of?
The only thing I could think of is maybe Cyborg.
Yeah.
Because he's the all-American hero. That's the only one I would think would have that kind of same, tint, if you will.
But I love this debate between all of them, because what you've got here is sitting in this room, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, and obviously, Taki Tawny as well, sitting there. And when you're going to have that kind of group of people that make up Captain Thunder, one of the things I like about the dynamic is they aren't all on the same page as far as what they want to do or how they're feeling about all this. And you got Billy sitting there, saying, hey, we almost died, and...
Yeah, we're just a bunch of kids. What can we do? And I thought that was just the inner dialogue, just the dynamic of the team, where you do need them all to come together. You all need them to work together.
Was there, in that first page, was there a word balloon error? Because there's one over Billy where it says, Billy, what do we do? And Billy comes back and says, what do? We don't do anything, Mary. We're just a bunch of kids. But then it says, technically, yes, Freddie, but with, isn't that an issue?
Yeah, that should have.
It should have said technically yes, Billy, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So just a tiny little thing that I caught. I remember sitting there going, "What? Huh?" I'm like, okay, I get what he was going. I mean, it was a very minor error, but I get what he was going for here. I liked the debate though, because each of the kids is going through and saying, "But remember what happened last time Captain Thunder met Wonder Woman, Eugene? We almost died." And the kids are talking about that. These are kids. There comes a point in time where they're looking at the fact they had the power of Captain Marvel, Captain Thunder, whatever you want to call him, and they almost died. It's a real interesting concept. I'm very torn. I want to see the Captain Marvel concept brought back. I don't care if it's Captain Thunder or Captain Marvel. I really enjoyed seeing these kids facing these overwhelming odds.
Yeah, I kind of want to see Marvel coming back. Thunder is cool, especially the history and the fact that this was the original concept, and I thought that was really cool pulling that in. But for me, I do want to see the Marvel family come back. I want to see Captain Marvel with Billy and Freddie and the full crew, and just where that goes. And I think I'm pretty sure they've said already that we will get that eventually. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it was really kind of neat, because one of the things I liked about this particular version of it is the fact that they've got foils to play off of each other when they're not Captain Thunder. And it's very realistic in terms of all these different personalities. I thought that was very interesting as compared to the version we've all kind of come to know and love. But yeah, I can't wait to see one version or the other. I'd like to see something back with the Marvel family for the next 52 books.
looking at this one with Coast City, when we go in there, I really enjoyed seeing what Hal Jordan's life would be like if he never became Green Lantern. And to see that the hero's still there. You know, this was something that I liked throughout this, and I don't know, Myron, how much of this you got to see in the mini, but I liked seeing Wonder Woman and Aquaman really deep down at their core are the heroes we know and love, but circumstances have driven them to be what they are. You know, it wasn't their effort. It wasn't without their effort. They tried to be who we wanted them to be, but the world really didn't let them be who they were.
The world and people around them, you know, there was a lot of, you know, mind games that they didn't see coming because they were trying to be the diplomats. They were trying to find the positive, and the people around them wanted war. They wanted just to pull out the negative of them.
We don't know what happened yet. You know, it's something I'm dawning. I mean, we're 4 issues into the series. We don't know where this happened.
Yeah.
You know, so what was the pivotal point that caused all this?
It's funny, you get so wrapped up in the world, it's hard to believe. Yeah, we're 1 issue away from being done, and we still don't know how this was done.
Well, I wonder if putting this back, they're going to relaunch Superman, realizing that was a pivotal point. Like, because you know how when we ship back in the 52, they're talking about how Action Comics Superman's going to be the lead hero, the superhero. I wonder if they're realizing we need Superman to be that lead hero again, and that's what leads to the catalyst. They put the world back the best that they can. Maybe they can't directly undo what Reverse Flash did, so they have to find the best possible solution to set the world on the closest to the right path.
I think you're pretty close to hitting it on the head, Sean. I think we're going to see something in this last issue where things are going to go back, but not exactly 100% the way we know them to be.
Yeah, I like that, though, because, see, to me, we as fans talk about, well, what about our protecting our continuity? I like when events, you know, lead us directly into, if there's going to be a new continuity, the story feels like it's still continuing. This event happened, and we're going back to our world, but this, you know, we're continuing the story. This event happened, it changed the course for certain characters and things, but it really is the same story we've been following all along, in spite of all that. Hal and Hector, though, seeing their relationship together, especially seeing, you know, Hector, you know, telling them good luck and all that, but also they do not like each other. And, you know, you can see that why these two characters would wind up being against each other, you know, in the circumstance that we know, because personality-wise, there's an automatic clash between the two of them.
Yeah, and it's that, but I did like how there was that moment when Hal kind of dropped the smile, and you see he's focused, and you see, hey, I'm not going to just lie around and do nothing. That's not me, no matter what. And that moment that Hector goes, he gets Hal that he's not just this goofball.
I focus on that, and I'll go hide in the shadows like all those superheroes, which, you know, you're talking about, this is the hero of the light. This is the guy, you know, why was he such a good Green Lantern? Because he doesn't want to hide in the shadows. He wants to be out in the open. He wants to be that bright, shining light out there. And that we're seeing him do that in these. That's something I was like, got chills from that, because I'm like, oh, yes, this is exactly what I like about Hal.
Definitely. I mean, that was a great moment where you see how the universe shapes kind of who we become, but we're still the same person deep down inside. And this is Hal, just maybe slightly through a different look of the glass.
When we get back to Barry and Batman and Cyborg fighting in this sequence of events in Metropolis, it's interesting to see, you know, Barry. I keep forgetting that Barry has the powers of the Flashback, but he's not as fast as we know him. You know, this is him just getting the powers fresh. So the typical connection with the Speed Force, where he's doing like amazing things with it that we're used to seeing, is not there at the moment. And so we're seeing him trying to do everything he can to protect people, you know, which would be the Flash's thing. Like, let me run around and disarm everybody. Let me give us an edge up. Let me, you know, Barry's one of those guys that can change the numbers game.
Yeah.
Really quick. And it's interesting to see that with these weapons that they have there and his lack of speed, he needed help. And we get that crazy Emily Sung Element Woman. I love her. She's nutty.
You got to have a character you can have some fun with, and she's definitely one of those where you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is going to be kind of cool.
Yeah, the funny thing is, there's something about her right away that I find endearing. She's nice. Yes, she's a little off, if that makes sense. But yet, I would trust her, which is kind of a strange thing to say. Like, if she was on my team, she's not one of those characters that would turn on me. She's not one of those characters that would leave the battle. She wouldn't run away scared. Sometimes you might have to drag her away, is what I think more of what the issue would be. But I mean, I do feel like she would be somebody, because she comes and saves them here, because that's what she needed to do at that moment. She's a true hero. She's off. But I do find her. I don't know if you guys agree with me about her.
No, definitely agree that she's somebody I would trust, but I wouldn't. In a way, I wouldn't call her say she's a true hero. I think she is who she is. She's just bam, this is her, and she's been following Cyborg, kind of interested because no one ever wanted her to be wanted her to be on their team before. So she's like, hey, I don't. It's that kid who's never been able to make friends, who's never been able to actually get a group together, and it's that quality which makes me think I would trust her completely. But there's no way I would want her to take command of a situation or anything like that. And
I wouldn't make her a team leader. I agree with you on that.
But in even a situation where it's her and civilians, I would be worried about the civilians.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know exactly what she's going to do. She may say, "Hey, what are we supposed to do here?" And instead of be the strong hero that would need to say, "This is what we got to do."
Well, they didn't tell her what to do to rescue her. I guess that's what I'm going off of.
Yeah.
Like when she reacts, it seems to be effective.
Yeah, well, hey,
I haven't we haven't read any stories so far. I guess.
Exactly.
I guess that's what I'm saying is every experience that I've had with her, while she seems a little off, when it comes to the chips are down, she's been there for them and been effective. And also people like that, I got to be honest with you, I didn't have a lot of friends in elementary school, but the friends that I had, I was extremely loyal to. And growing up, I've maintained that loyalty. Now, maybe I'm as nuts as she is, or, I don't know. But I'm looking at somebody like her, and I'm saying to myself, okay, being in her situation that she hasn't been asked to be a part of a team, and she's doing these heroic things because she believes they're the right thing to do, I can imagine her being an incredibly loyal teammate in a world where loyalty is very hard to find. Like, out of this whole group right now, Barry's walking around with, right now, arguably with Cyborg with his government connections and all that, I would almost argue she's a little bit more loyal than even Cyborg. And that's Cyborg's a true hero here. Myron, go ahead.
Well, I think she doesn't come with any of those potential alliances that she's got to protect, or she's not working for the government. She's a little more naive and honest and trustworthy, as you said. In this one page, she becomes instantly endearing, and she's the kind of person you want on your team, but you still might keep an eye on her out of the back of your head because she might not have that experience or that street smartness to protect her own back.
Yeah.
Which goes off what Jim's saying, and I do agree with that. Like, I wouldn't sit there and say, hey, she's here, time for her to be the squad leader. I'm not saying that. No. I'm saying, though, I would be very comfortable having her on my team. Sure. Now, what I would be curious in a team dynamic, and this is the area where I would be a little bit cautious, but you would be this with anybody, no matter, is can she follow orders? Can she,
is she going to be scatterbrained?
But
is she going to be
here's
focused?
The other thing. Are you convinced that Thomas Wayne is a real good member of the team?
See, I think of the three people Barry's got with him in that page, Element Woman is the one with the least likely to have an ulterior motive.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing, though. Thomas Wayne's motivation is really on sync with Barry's.
Yeah.
Because Thomas is there to protect Bruce, to bring back his son. And he, for that to happen, he's got to make sure Flash reaches his goal. Cyborg is there to, peace and protect the U.S. He's not there to bring back the world as it was.
Here's the thing, though. I think Thomas Wayne would let every one of them die to save Bruce. Whereas Barry would go out of his way to save everybody. I actually think this Element Woman would go out of her way to save everybody. I think her motives are most in line, and Cyborg's, I think, on that level too. But I think she's probably the most, for all of her lunacy, I actually would argue she's the most in line with Barry. In the sense that I do see her as being somebody who, I don't see her going out of her way to kill people. I don't see her, all of a sudden turning on people and saying, okay, Barry, I'm going to slice you through the head or anything like that because she has, like Myron was saying, she has no agenda other than the fact that she's part of the team. She wants to be that person. She wants some validation. She's looking for that. And who's going to give her that more than Barry Allen? Like once Barry gets to know her, like Cyborg's already doing it. Because even when Batman's talking about her being crazy, Cyborg's saying she's not crazy. She just, hasn't been around people much. So she's got social issues more than the fact that she's actually, if you're believing Cyborg, which I got to be honest with you, Cyborg's a pretty sharp cookie.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. This Cyborg, I honestly think if he was given the opportunity, he would completely stop Barry on the unknown factor. If he could have complete peace, if he can take down the threat to the U.S., i.e. the Amazons and the Atlanteans, but, in the process have to, blow up Barry to do it and wipe them out, he would do it.
Oh, agreed. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he validates Element Woman. I wasn't saying that validates Cyborg. That's a wholly complete... That's why I said Element Woman, I think right now, out of all the people Barry's traveling with, if I'm picking a buddy who's going to watch my back, I think she's the only one that isn't going to, stab him in the back. I don't think she'll do it to any of them, because she's just so pleasant.
We're in agreement there.
Yeah, in this world right now, if I'm latching onto somebody I want that I would be okay with being behind me without having to look over my shoulder every 10 seconds, I'm probably going to have to give her a reminder or two, but it's not going to be to stop trying to kill me. Whereas you got Thomas Wayne injecting Barry with stuff to keep him lucid long enough to bring his son back.
Yeah.
So, which I actually really like that element of all this. I like that we see the combat that Barry is going through. It's something we see in Booster Gold as well, and I won't go too much into that because I know you're not reading that, Myron. But I like the fact that when we've got heroes that are over in this world, they are having issues with time trying to correct not only itself, but you. It's trying to fold you into your spot in this world, where you would belong. And I love that the injection bit, and then taking... I love how this leads to them going to the kids with Captain Thunder, saying, hey, we need to get some serious magical help for this. We need to do something to hopefully charge this guy up so he can last long enough to fix this world.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's funny because, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking again about Element Woman and the Captain Thunder and the kids. And there is just, I want to say it's overplaying, but oversimplifying, but it is the innocence of a child. And, when you're talking about a person watching your back, where do you want to go? Who do you want to have, looking out for your safety? And I don't know. It's still, there's... Part of me I don't think she would intentionally betray me, but I think she could be, of everyone on this team, she could be misled easiest. And she could be tricked either by Cyborg or somebody else. Oh, hey, Element Woman, you need to do this. Oh, really? Oh, okay, sure. And not, you lose your track. You think about when they initially arrive on the scene, and I'm getting a little bit ahead, when Captain Thunder goes, no, Wonder Woman's mine. He flew right into it, and he initiated the combat with Wonder Woman, and we saw how well that kind of worked out for him. Mm-hmm. It's that, but that's kind of like the child mentality where, you go hard forward and hard fast.
But I think she has the potential. If I was putting together a team, I wouldn't hesitate to put her on it, because while she's green, and I mean color, I mean the green in the sense that she doesn't have the experience, I do think that she is a character who, once she becomes loyal to you, you're not going to have those issues. Yeah. She's not going to turn on you. Right now, with the way the squad is, she barely knows the people other than Cyborg. And I do agree, if there's one person that's going to turn, it's probably Cyborg, because she seems to be looking for his approval the most. But I think over time, as she got to know them, I do think she'd be somebody who has the potential to be almost obsessively loyal. And I don't mean that in a negative way, in the sense that I think, I think she has the purity of a child.
Yeah.
Where I think she will see things as black and white and friends as friends.
Yeah. Oh, and it's funny because as I'm agreeing with you and arguing with you at the same time, and there is that loyalty that you would get from her. For some reason, I'm thinking she's going to get manipulated and she's going to double cross them. I just got that.
I think she's going to be voted most likely not to survive. just because she is so honest and sincere, she has no ulterior motive, she has no other agenda. She's going to be the first one they're going to double cross if something doesn't go right.
She reminds me of what I liked about Plastic Man in the Morrison run.
Yeah.
Of Justice League.
Yeah.
Like when they burst into she's going, "Hey kids, anyone want a juice box?" After Batman says, "We need your help," and remember, that's this Batman. This isn't, our kind, gentle, friendly Bruce Wayne Batman. And I'm being very sarcastic when I say that, but this is like the next level of dark Batman.
Now, here's the thing with that. I'm just wondering, do you think this Batman has the Batman voice and does the sound to his voice, or is he just nasty enough that his regular voice is intimidating?
I think he sounds more like SpongeBob.
I don't think he ever has a public voice. Like, I don't think Thomas Wayne, with what he does when he's not in the costume, has a public voice. Like the kind of kinder, gentler Thomas Wayne voice.
Yeah.
I think to answer your question, there is no Batman voice.
It is.
There
just
is
his
Thomas
voice,
Wayne's nasty voice that's universal, because this is just a bitter man in all aspects of his life.
I'll say justifiably bitter.
Because I don't think we've got the playboy aspect that we have with Bruce Wayne, where he puts that on as a mask. Thomas Wayne just goes and does his Thomas Wayne thing. He's an SOB either way. I think that's just. I don't know. Did you guys disagree with me? I don't know.
No, I'm in agreement with you on this one.
Myra, what do you think? Do you think that
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think the miniseries, Myra, when you read the miniseries, I think that even just more verifies that. Now, these kids. It's funny how one of the things I really love about these kids, besides the fact that they're kind of connecting with Barry and seeing what their life would have been like Billy gets to see what it would have been like to have been Captain Marvel in this world, and what life would have been like for him, Mary, and Freddy if they were in that world. And just realizing that there is actually a different world and that there's some hope in that place. Which is funny when you consider our DC universe and how much turmoil it's gone through. That is one of the things that I do think is an important feature of the DC universe. And it's why in the 52 I'm glad to see some of the books looking like they have the potential to be a little bit brighter, if that makes sense. Like, I love Batman, I love the darkness of it and all that, but I like that some of the heroes, like Animal Man, maybe has the potential to be a brighter book. I'd like to see some, Blue Beetle has the potential to be a little bit brighter. I'd like to see some books where they feel kind of fun and bright and heroic. Just because I think that is a quality of the DC universe that kind of sets that superhero universe apart. Mm-hmm. So seeing it through this Billy's eyes was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was just awesome, where he's like, I saw a different world, a world of hope. I thought that, for me, was just like the clinching moment that, like, okay, boom, Captain Thunder's in this game, because Billy saw what, Barry has known all along. And I'm like, okay, we're getting a team together. And I thought that was just how we had those discussions ahead of time where they're saying yes, no, and and it was just that moment of focus, that moment of clarity. And I liked seeing how that played out.
Guys, imagine your whole world has changed around you and your best friend is killed. And you see it on television. Mm-hmm. And you got to wonder, Barry at this point is having issues with which world he's really a part of. But he knows his friendship with Hal Jordan, and that's the one thing now that he's been zapped by Billy, he can latch onto. He just found out his friend died. What does that do to you?
I think any momentum you had, you just lost. It just would completely take the wind out of my sails.
And you kind of see it with him where he just kind of rushes off and, in a way, he flies off the handle and he stops really just thinking and focus. He's like, hey, I gotta go now. And it's that impulsiveness that I gotta be running. And it's, in a way, it is a grieving moment. It's you have those moments where when you're dealing with an extremely volatile situation, and then it just they kicked it up to 11, seeing that his best friend is now dead, and he's just like
Well, the philosophical debate here is an important key, because here's the one thing. They've been operating on the assumption they can change the world back, and Barry's realizing, what happens if I can't? Can we just let this world keep crumbling the way that it is? Or do we need to start doing something here just in case? And he gets into this philosophical debate with Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne would be very happy for this world just to burn.
Yeah.
And because he does not, this is the most horrible kind of hellish existence for him. So he's banking everything on no. We're changing this world back to your way, Barry. I don't care about that for me. But Barry's being the true hero and saying, wait a minute, I just watched my best friend die on television. And the reason why, it's because I'm ignoring what's going on around me here because I'm so obsessed with my quest to turn it right. What happens if I can't? I can't ignore what's going on here. I've got to do something in this world. He wants to be a true hero. We've seen this with Superman before when they go on alternate universes and alternate worlds, like the Crime Syndicate world or something like that, where he'll start being Superman in that world and trying to make a difference, trying to make a change. Yeah. I like that Barry as a true hero here. This is something I want to see from Barry post all this. I want to see him being another bright hero, where it's like, I like this cut and dry thing where he's saying, wait a minute, I can't ignore this here. And that to me is a hero, because could you go to an alternate world and watch everything being destroyed if you had powers and just let it happen?
That'd be a tough one. Even if I knew by not doing anything I could fix it, that would be a tough thing. But here Barry is faced with the fact that he may not be able to fix it. Right. He may not be able to correct everything. And
these are his friends that he's watching these things happen to.
That'd be nasty.
I think he realizes that time moves slow for him, but here's a point where he can't undo that now. That's happened. How is he going to fix it now that he's realizing time is moving forward and people are dying that I may not be able to bring back?
And if I had been more focused on being a hero here, would Hal have died? So he's feeling responsible for that. I love that.
Yeah, and a cool cyborg moment. Just where he comes in, he's like, "Hey, why are you shouting? You're frightening the children." And I thought that was just kind of a bringing them all back into reality, kind of like just a smack in the face, sort of just reality check, guys. Bam, we have to deal with this now.
Now, this we get back to this debate again about Batman being the one. And these kids, I want pizza next Friday. I love that bit with Billy and his crew. I'm sitting there saying, hey, I'm fighting for pizza. But it's an endearing thing for the kids saying, hey, these simple moments, these moments of joy, the moments of hope, pizza night for them in this dark world is a moment of hope. It's their time to be together as a family, which, there's a message there, I think. These kids can find simple joy in pizza. Maybe we all need to kind of simplify a little bit. You know what I mean? And to see things, that's a message sometimes you get from comics. I thought I really dug that. But you get that moment, and, Batman's still not on board, but then Bruce would have come. Probably my favorite line there, because you knew that was like digging right inside him at that moment.
Well, even the lead up to it, where you just got the face off between Flash and Bruce, and as he's walking away, it's the comment thrown over the shoulder. He doesn't look back for it. He just continues on. In a way, Flash knows, okay, this is going to get him. And again, zoom in close up on Bruce's face. He's like, Cyborg, wait. I just really liked how that played out. Boom, boom, boom. And just you knew it was coming as soon as they had it, and it was one of those. Even though I saw it coming, I still enjoyed it.
Here's a line, guys, and this is another reason. Like in my third read through of this, when I was going through, this is where I really focused on Limit Woman. I'll come. I mean, I know that, and everyone thinks I'm a bit off or whatever, but still, I'll help however I can if you'll still have me. Now, in that moment. How do you not trust that person? She's basically said everything everybody's thinking about her. She knows it.
Yeah.
And she's still coming anyway. And she said that everyone knows I'm going to come anyway. But I'm just telling you because, I want to be there. You gotta. No strings. She's not asking for anything in return. She just wants to be a part of this because she feels it's like the right place to be and the right thing to do.
And it's funny because I agree with you, and I'm such a pessimist that I always look for the cloaked. I look for the double cross, and especially in this universe, I've really been looking for the double cross, and I've caught a couple of them. I saw it coming. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably yay. And I recognize where it's coming from, and just for some reason with her, she's just so innocent and so, good and nice and just all these happy joy thoughts going on through her that I'm like, part of me is always wondering in the back of my mind, is this all an act? Is she really gonna, betray him? Is something bad's gonna happen? And
if it's an act, she fooled me.
Yeah, I know. And I honestly, I don't think it's gonna happen, but just the pessimist in me is always just thinking twice about it.
It's funny when Blackout's saying, it's insane over there. You expect us to come now, and you got Blackout saying that?
Yeah.
I love that knowing who Blackout is.
Yeah.
Which, Myron, you won't know yet, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. I won't ruin that for you.
Go ahead.
It's Martian Manhunter.
Oh.
So, which is in the Outsider book. And it's kind of cool hearing that dialogue, knowing that it's really Martian Manhunter and that people don't really know that. We as readers know that. We've been following Outsider. But, nobody on that plane right now including Barry, has any idea that they're really talking to Martian Manhunter in that moment.
And same thing with Enchantress. Unfortunately, the rest of the Secret Seven can't make it, but, I just pick a new team. And when I read that sequence, I was like, oh, nice.
Now, this battle between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, I love this feeling. These are really the two remaining traditional heavy hitters in the DC universe.
Yeah.
With any form of power there. And we get to see these two, battling it out and what it would be like to have, if our heroes turn bad, if they really did. I mean, do you consider them bad guys? Where do you consider their role in all this? I don't know if it's that cut and dry, but how are you viewing them in this?
I think they're ruled by their emotions, and they're not necessarily bad, but I think they're so obsessed with revenge against what's happened, and they're so wrapped up in that they don't see the bigger picture of what they're doing.
I think it's part of it is they've lost who they are, and we're seeing them, the core base character, the warrior side of them, and each one of them always had the hero, tempering that. And in this universe, there isn't that hero, there isn't that hope, there isn't that, that positive, energy of them to offset the, the hate, offset the rage. In this universe, we're only seeing their rage, and I think that's one of the, for me, there's still that goodness in them, but they don't have the. I want to say experience of it, but there's just been so much that it got pushed aside, and oh man, I don't want to say they're villains because they're not doing it for malicious reasons, but they're not the heroes anymore. They're not the heroes they were because those heroes never had a chance to be born, to be growing through experience and just what made them Wonder Woman, what made him Aquaman, what made them heroes. They didn't have those situations go on. They had something else kind of manipulate them.
I think it kind of shows the importance of Superman.
Yeah.
Looking at this crew of 6 and the Tiger, I'm going to say it again. You know how the Justice League in some storylines traditionally tend to pair off? I'm taking the Looney. I mean, look at that crew. You talk about trust. Cyborg's my second choice. I'm taking Barry out of it. I'm saying if I was Barry.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not saying Barry obviously would be the first choice, but if I'm taking Barry out of the equation, I'm going with the Looney. Only because Captain Thunder ruled by his emotions.
Yeah.
We already see what he does. It's all about going after Wonder Woman. He's not being a team player, not following. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love that moment, and it fits with what happened to him. I get what he did, and it's great storytelling. But see, that's what it is. I do think all the characters are reacting according to their roles and their character on this. And I think the Looney's the most trustworthy. Yeah. I do.
You gotta be a little crazy to do it, so yeah.
What does it tell you when she's the one on point,
Yeah. Because Enchantress I don't trust.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Batman, obviously, he has his issues, and, Cyborg's a close second.
It's, Cyborg, again, is another one of those where, you kind of wonder, with the government tie, and is he being completely upfront with them? In a way, I think, yes, he is, but there is that doubt when you start dealing with the government agencies. Now,
what was interesting is Flash making a decision to say, hey, wait a minute, I know Aquaman, I know Arthur. This is my chance to get through to somebody. So I see, to me, that's another giddy DC moment where you see very similar to Barry's reaction to Hal's dying. And that's something I really like because that's true to those characters. Like growing up as a kid, like, I remember these characters occasionally getting together and go double dating and stuff like that. I'm talking about, like, Hal Jordan and Barry Allen and wives and stuff like that of the characters. And you'd see them socializing. And, Aquaman was a part of that. Like, these were characters who were very friendly and all that. And, yes, throughout their history, some of those characters have darkened, like Aquaman, the path that he's gone on, like in Peter David's run and stuff like that. But as far as logical progression, he was still that member of the Justice League. He was still part of that era. And that's something that I always thought was super cool about the character. And I love that they're bringing that into play here, emotionally. So that moment where he's like, I can reach Aquaman, that would be would he go to Wonder Woman or would he go to Aquaman? It makes more sense to me that he would think that Aquaman traditionally is going to be the one he's going to be able to have a more rational conversation with based on his history with Aquaman.
Yeah, and how cool is it, though, that we do have thunder rolling in the background, rumbling, as we have these, great Captain Thunder moments, and just where he's throwing down with Wonder Woman. And it's funny, because as we're flipping through it and we're looking at these scenes where Thunder's coming in, and as it's rumbling in the background, I gotta say, that's just awesome. And then you go right from that final panel where Enchantress just shows she's not exactly on the up and up. Talk about double crossing your team at the best time for her, worst time for them, as she uses the magic to drop and separate Captain Thunder into the kids again. I was just like, perfect, beautiful, wonderful betrayal. I feel bad for the kids, but this is how you do a double cross. You pick the best time to do it.
She set up those kids, though, to fry.
Well, not only...
She knew they were kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And hey, it's, again, the evil bad guys aren't going to be nice about it. Hello, evil villain here. Gotta do what I gotta do. And I really like seeing that. And it's wrong to enjoy seeing little children die, but... Again, it was just an ideal moment, a perfect strike time for her to hit. And, it's kind of curious to see where this goes next issue, seeing how the people are going to react to the death of these children. It's...
Well, Billy.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Billy died there? Myron, do you think Billy died there?
Jesus, it's hard to say. The lightning that hits at that point, is it him dying? Is that what's that part of Captain Thunder that's in him being released as he dies? It's really hard to tell. You can't. There's not enough information there for you to really tell whether he did or didn't. I'd assume he did, but gosh, it's hard to tell.
Well, I'm thinking he did because isn't it the one panel looks like he's kind of like ashes or something, or
that's a puddle.
Well, no, next to it, I thought that was Billy in the ashes.
Yeah, okay.
The dirt, I thought that was Billy, but I could very easily be wrong. Because when he gets run through, that releases all the lightning energy.
But what if Billy vanishes? What if he went to the wizard?
Okay, yeah, that could definitely be a possibility.
Like, my first read-through, I agreed with you, but now I'm wondering because then that leaves room for Billy to come back. And what if the wizard might be part of the key... Billy's power. Like, what if he comes back not Captain Thunder, but Captain Marvel?
Yeah. Now, what do you think happened to the other kids? Because when they initially got separated, you see most of them are unconscious. Mary's on her feet, and then in the later panels where they're showing Reverse Flash standing there going, "Look what you did!" Just kind of gloating over. You don't see any of the kids. So if maybe that big bolt of energy sucked them all, and boom, they're all with the wizard.
Oh. Well, that's an interesting part. So Captain Thunder could come back then. If that's
or
the case.
Captain, or just Billy, or maybe Freddy, or I don't know. There's definitely other possibilities.
And there is a possibility that Billy's dead, too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, agreeing with that.
My initial reaction was Billy's a crispy critter and he's toast.
And there's a possibility those other kids are still on the battlefield and we just don't see them.
Yeah, that would kind of stink. If you're that little kid there, you're used to the power of Captain Thunder, all of a sudden you're just a kid now, and I don't think the Amazons will be that merciful of male children, and the Atlanteans, it's probably same deal. Yeah, it's a surface dweller. I'll kill it just the same. The only probably best chance of survival is don't look threatening, and maybe they'll go after another target.
Now, what's interesting is Reverse Flash is blaming him. Is he blaming him for what happened to the kids? Is he blaming him for the escalation of the battle? What is he blaming him
He's
for?
blaming him for everything. I think he's gonna.
How is that Barry's fault?
It's the mind games. I'm taking this purely as him going to throw some mind games in Barry, saying, "Look what this universe. Look what it, in a way, probably. Look what you made me do," or it just kind of.
Well, he would say, "Look
games.
what you made me do." Then.
I was just going to say, I think he's saying it because, look what you did because you're trying to fix things.
Yeah.
That you're responsible for it. But, I'm looking at that panel where she kind of runs him through. Is that her running him through, or did Professor Zoom, did Reverse Flash, is that his lightning?
Oh, that's another possibility. I don't know. Yeah, because the lightning there is completely throwing me off. Because that's definitely something he's screaming about. I don't know. Because the crack-hoom afterwards at the end is after he's, like, there's that initial shock there, but why would there be the lightning afterwards? What does that mean?
I took it that's when he exploded.
But why would he
Professor Zoom
explode?
showed up.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility, too.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Well, I wonder if the dissipation of energy allowed Professor Zoom to show up. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much unknown right now.
Because that doesn't necessarily need to be tied to Zoom. Zoom could have been monitoring this all along.
Well, I initially thought maybe
Because
Zoom...
that could be related to Billy.
Yeah. My initial reaction was that was all Billy, the energy dissipating as he died. And... just Zoom just showing up at that same time, to gloat with all this massive death and destruction, and this kid is now dead, and let's add to Barry's suffering by, telling him it's all your fault, Barry. You did this. This is because of you.
Am I the only one that's super interested in Swamp Thing? I'm sorry, I was looking at the Swamp Thing cover that's in there for Scott Snyder and Yannick Paquette. I'm probably butchering that name, but I'm looking at that, and that looks really nice. Sorry, I'm getting off kind of a side tangent there.
No, you're not the only one. I'm very curious on that.
Yeah.
Is there, Myron, as long as we're like wrapping up Flashpoint here at this moment, is there titles maybe from the 52 that you're picking up or trying, one or two or any, however many, that you're surprised you're interested in picking up?
Well, it's interesting. I'm picking up one of the Batman books, the Peter Tomasi Batman book, and the Batgirl book, which I've always enjoyed Batman, but in small doses. So I'm surprised in myself that those two books in particular jumped out at me for whatever reason. And it's interesting. The more I look at the list of 52, there's more and more that I want to check out. Yeah,
it's kind of. I think it's one of those things for me. I like the variety.
Yeah,
like there's not like, even though on the surface it looked like, well, we got superhero books there. I like the way they're categorizing and grouping them, where there's little groups of like titles, and you can kind of look at them and say, okay, this feels like kind of my supernatural category, this feels kind of a horror category, this feels a traditional superhero category, this fits my Batman group, my Superman group, that's my team book group, and that type of thing. You can start like breaking them down into categories, and I really like that.
Well, it goes back to that diversity in comics discussion that you had recently about the diversity in the styles of books and the types of books, that there's really something there for everybody.
I think that's critically important right now. With the amount of competition that comics have from other medium, I think you need titles that feel a little bit different, that can maybe reach that different kind of player. Like a lot of these Justice League Dark, like there's a PC game out now called The Witcher. And there's The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2. It's a role-playing game series, which is kind of, it's more of a supernatural, witch hunter kind of element kind of thing. And it's very cool. But I was thinking to myself, I look at a game like that, and I see these dark, that dark group category, Justice League Dark, and, the Demon Knights title and stuff like that. You Swamp Thing and Animal Man, and you start seeing, like these different types of titles appearing with these type of characters. And I'm like, well, Vampire, and those type of books. They're perfect titles for that type of game player, for example. So I think there are more opportunities, and I'm glad to see that there's a television commercial that's going to be out in movies. I'm going to be curious to see where that's being aired, and if they're going to be taking some opportunities to air that in places where maybe you wouldn't traditionally expect to see a comic book thing. But I know I listen to the Howard Stern show, and they do on Howard 101, they do a Geek Time show with Ralph Cirella. And I know tomorrow, which is Friday, and this will probably timing-wise, is going to be like posted for people listening to this. Be like, well, that already happened. But Jeff Johns and Jim Lee are going to be on that show. So I'm glad to just kind of every time I turn around, I'm seeing them appear on more websites. Like Dan DiDio and Jim Lee are appearing on a lot of different websites that are pop culture websites and things like that promoting this. I'm glad to see this getting a lot of media attention, and hopefully that will generate some people who maybe aren't reading, because that's what I want to see out of this. Obviously, I'm looking at a lot of things that look like they're going to be pretty satisfying to me. But I want to see out of this some people reading comics maybe who either stepped away, because I know they're looking for a lot of lapsed readers out of this, try and bring some of them back into comics. But what I'm hoping is also some people maybe who haven't tried comics before to maybe give them a shot. And I think that gaming crowd, I still maintain there's a lot of potential. That's a big audience, and there's a lot of people in there who like swag. And comic books are chock full of swag. And you look at Batman Arkham Asylum, that game, did incredibly well. I guarantee you, not even half the people who bought that game are comic book readers.
In my office alone, there was a couple people who bought the game, said it was wonderful, played it, they're excited about the next one coming out. None of them have read comic books. They are fans of the genre. They saw Captain America, they saw Green Lantern when it came out, the Batman movies, they see those, but they're not comic book readers. And if you can just, pull them in and just get them reading comics, and, I'm going to, let them borrow the Batman, the Arkham City comic, let them borrow that, but they're not interested in becoming comic book readers.
Are you reading just the Arkham City miniseries, or are you reading the digital exclusives that are on?
I'm right now just reading the miniseries.
That there's every month there's also being released a digital issue that is supplemental material. It's all new story.
I know that now. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's been 6 of them released. They're free, or not free. They're 99 cents, I think, on the app or something like that.
I think that this is where it's smart for DC to do some of the other things they're doing. Like, they're doing an Uncharted comic book, where the gaming audience that might pick that book because they're interested in the video game, there's prime real estate there for DC to promote their mainstream superhero books in a title that non-comic book fans are going to pick up.
You know what? Those have been really good. I'm trying to think of what. Infamous had a comic book series that was out recently that bridges between the first and second game. And it was tremendous. And the God of War comic that was written by Marv Wolfman was absolutely fantastic. So there's a lot of these video game comics. Like, for a while, they're video game property comics, very similar to movie and television property comics, were kind of lackluster. And I think across the board, comic companies are getting smart, and they're putting top talent on media property comics. And that's not something that's exclusive to DC. We're seeing that in companies like IDW and Dark Horse and stuff like that, who are, and Marvel, with, doing things like Stephen King's properties and the Oz series and stuff like that. We're seeing a lot more top talent being put on these properties, and we're getting really good television, film, and video game tie-ins that, are matching the kind of storytelling we're getting in those games. I think that's critical, like the Uncharted one that you mentioned. Great example of that. And a gaming series that lends itself to comic book storytelling. Because they already did like a digital, it was kind of like a motion comic kind of deal that they did in between 1 and 2. I think, that's great that that's going to be happening. So you're right, there are more opportunities to bring people into comics, to let people see that comics are cool, and that they do have more than they're more than a one-trick pony, which is superhero stuff. So I don't know. This guys, Flashpoint. Is there anything? Where do you want this to go in issue 5? Do you have anything that you're like thinking? See, to me, I'm to the point right now where I've got so many questions about how this came about, like what Reverse Flash did. That's my focus on issue 5. I want to know what he did. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Where are you guys at? Is there anything else you guys are thinking of?
I want to see where the fix comes in. And I'm not in my head with you saying I want to see what he did, how did he tweak it, what did he change, but I do want to see how the fix plays out, because it's not just going to be Barry. It's going to be them all working together, and I think we're going to see a coming together of this creation's version of the Justice League, all these people who are out there, those who are still alive and who are still around, are going to have to work together. And I think that's actually how we're going to get to bring about the change, bring about the fix. It's not just going to be Barry, it's going to be all of them.
Myron?
I think it's really interesting to look at DC history and how important the Flash was to reviving the comic book industry. And here DC Universe is closing a huge chapter on their history using the Flash. So that's one thing I'm really kind of fanboyish about. But I really want to see how do they wrap it up. I think, Jim, you're exactly right. I want to see how does he fix it? Or what does he fix? What is he able to fix? And how do they try to undo that? Because how do you go back without going back in history and undoing what was already done? You know what I mean?
That's the point I was making. I think the pivotal question I have right now is, I got to know what Reverse Flash did. How do you fix something when you don't know what happened?
Yeah.
Because Barry's already addressed that in previous issues, that the reason why he hasn't gone back in time to try to fix this is he doesn't exactly know what he did. So until you have that reveal, that's what I'm saying. The pivotal point now, we've come to the point where it's Barry's confrontation with Reverse Flash. Yeah. We have to find out what he did, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're the Reverse Flash, are you going to give it up? How is he going to get it from the Reverse Flash? Because I know...
Then do you try to fix it without that? See, that's why I think this confrontation is going to be pivotal, too. We're all saying the same thing. We want to see how we get to the fix. So you're right. There is that possibility. He isn't going to find out. He's going to have to try to fix it without finding out. Yeah.
Or you'd say something, I did this. Now, can you trust him? Can you think he's going to... Or is he going to swerve you? And it's going to be...
Don't we know that, though? Let me clarify that. Is the world going back to the way we knew it?
I don't think so.
So, don't we kind of know that, this is not going to go well, right? I mean, it's going to go well in the sense that we're going to get a world back that is familiar in a lot of ways, but different in others. It's because they couldn't put it back perfectly. We know they can't.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way the Zoom is going to tell him the way he did. Mm-hmm. If anything, he's going to lie about what he did and cause even more chaos and confusion.
Or Barry will discover just enough of it to be able to do something. Because, we know that he fixes it because we know there's something in September that's not this. So he fixes it.
Yeah, he does something, but it's,
I'm excited.
A lot to happen in one last issue.
What are your guys' feeling overall about this as an event? Has this felt like a satisfying event to you? How do you compare this to other events that you've read throughout your time in comics? Where does this does it rank differently, or do you guys rank events, or do you just kind of in your mind just kind of go through and enjoy them as they're happening? How do you guys handle that? Myron, how do you?
I like to just try to enjoy them. I think one thing that's different about this one is there hasn't been a lot of the good guy versus the bad guy thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it isn't until now that he's really confronting the guy and the architect behind it all. But there's been so many great pieces of so many great character moments and seeing what this world is like. That I see a lot of value there. It's different than some of the other events. Certainly if you compare this to, for example, War of the Green Lanterns, completely different tone and feel, but just as satisfying.
See, I judge them on a 16-point scale, with varying...
Wait. Before you go any further with this, you're joking? But there's that part of me that's you've done that kind of weird stuff before. That's part of what I like about doing this with you, because you'll throw me curveballs sometimes where you're like, well, see, I sat down and I built this flow chart, and this is how I can't wait. You got to remember, I do those end of the year shows with you where you do your rankings for the year, and it's different every doggone year.
He's got this complex algorithm in a spreadsheet.
And that's no joke. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm with you guys. I don't really rank the events. I tend to, every time I'm in the event, wow, this is cool. It's the best event ever. And it's because I'm enjoying the event that's going on. I do like the trend in recent years across comics of doing more of these events where you've got the main miniseries that everybody can follow on a budget, and they're a part of the event. And you can choose to then, with these satellite stuff, whether it's one-shots or minis, you can pick and choose and read what you'd like to. And yet you're still part of the event. You can kind of personalize and customize it. I think that's really important. I don't have eventitis. I like events. I like crazy things happening. I don't like when they're shoved down our throat. But I think more and more we're seeing story-driven reasons for events. And I like that it doesn't always have to be a company-wide event. I like that the Bat books kept on going during this. I like Justice League kept on going. Superman kept on. Majority of the titles just kept on going. And so if you totally said, hey, you know what? I don't want to do the Flashpoint thing. I'm just going to keep reading my title and try to figure out what the heck happened in September. But I think if you're a Batman reader, you probably could do that with little to no issue.
Yeah, it's going to pretty flow through, and actually Green Lantern as well. Green Lantern had a big event going on while this is going on. You can focus on that. For me, event, I want it to have an actual effect of the universe and have a lasting effect on the universe. And that's something that I've enjoyed about this, that I enjoyed about Blackest Night, Sinestro Corps War, even though, I want the event, needs, when the event is over, I want it to be, still around. I don't want it to be forgotten or just pushed aside as if it never happened. For me, it goes from being an event to a cool story. And there's nothing wrong with being a cool story, but if it's billed as an event, it needs to be an event after everything is said and done. And that's something that I've had problems with other events where I was like, I thought this was a great event as it's playing out. I'm enjoying it. I'm like, yeah. And then afterwards, they slowly start taking away stuff, and they start weakening the story, and they're doing it after the fact. And I'm like, for me, that takes away from being an event, making it a good story. And with Flashpoint, it's definitely, they're not doing that because they're revamping everything. And I'm with everybody here that it's going to be probably a play out directly from Flashpoint is what we're going to get into. And I like that. And I think that's going to make this one of those events that you have to put at the top of your game, just because it has such a massive, epic effect.
I'm looking over the kids and the dossiers, and you see Billy Batson, possesses the courage of Achilles. I keep forgetting that each of the kids possesses one of the powers, when they combine. So it's not just the kids combining that gives the powers to Captain Thunder. Each kid actually holds a piece of the power. So if we lose one of the kids, does that mean that Captain Thunder loses that power?
Yeah.
So, if Billy's dead, does that mean if they can still form Captain Thunder, does that mean that he's lost the courage of Achilles?
Yeah, I guess.
I just find that interesting about the whole thing. And then the character design notes for Emily Sung, Element Woman. Breath smells like chalk. I like that kind of stuff because I'm fascinated by this character. She's somebody that I would love to see in the New 52.
Well, I thought they said she was coming over.
Is she coming over?
I thought in one of the San Diego panels they said she's coming over.
Is it her or the one with Booster? Because we know the one with Booster's on JLI.
I thought they said it was her.
Cool. So we got a couple characters coming over then. Her I like. I really do like her. So I wouldn't mind following her. And this Dara Dudley, who I guess is kind of a nod to Uncle Dudley, possesses the speed of Mercury. Eugene... Frankie Taggart is the strength of Hercules, and Eugene is the wisdom of Solomon, which kind of fits his character.
Yeah.
Wow. So I don't know. I like these extras. I like this series so much that I've been rebuying it on the app in the Digital Deluxe, which I've told you about that on the show before, Jim. I don't know, Myron. Do you know about the Digital Deluxe they're doing on the app?
No, I did not.
What they're doing is they're releasing each of the issues, and they're up to issue 3 doing it so far. On the app, they're re-releasing the issues, but it includes the full issue, the pencil art, then the inked art.
Oh, that's cool.
So, after you're done reading the issue, you can keep on going, and you'll see the pencil art first, then the inked art. So, when it says Digital Lux, for that extra, it's like an extra $1 off of the regular issue price. An extra $1 more, I should say, than the regular issue price. But it's like you get each of those layers. And for anybody who likes DVD, see, for me, that's worth buying like that. It's like those director's cut issues. I like that kind of stuff. I wouldn't do it for every book, but I think there's special titles where, that's something to do. What I'd like to see them do in the future is to provide codes for stuff like that in the regular paper comics. So you take the paper comic fans and give them a bonus for buying the paper copy. A digital bonus saying, hey, get this cool digital extra. You know what I'm saying? Get the pencil art and the inked art or something like that when they do that. That's a route I would like them to see. Or maybe, if you bought the paper comic, you get a code to buy that for 99 cents. So, you already paid your paper comic price. So for the 99 cents more that somebody else would pay to get that digital extra, you can get those extras. It's kind of and that's a way to maybe, make some money on the digital end off of the paper fan, but not leaving them out of those bonuses and extras. So I'd like to see that kind of cool, like, connectivity between the digital and the paper, allowing the paper fans to feel like they're getting a bonus as well. Because I think that's important, to not, when you're doing the digital, you don't want to leave the paper fans in the dark. You want to make them feel special as well. And I'd like to see them do some paper exclusives, of some things that are like bonuses. Like how they're doing digital bonuses, do some paper bonuses, some things that you can get the story in digital, but then there's a paper bonus over there where you can kind of make this cool, like, hybrid type of thing where digital fans will who are like following a series will go, oh, I'll pick up the paper issue of that and maybe bring that digital fan into a comic shop. So you can kind of use them both to kind of support each other, if that makes sense, and build kind of a cool little cross-platform of comics. Good stuff.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Actually, I want to start out with a quick little show update. First of all, our voicemail line. We love having people on with the voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. So please, if you want to call into the show, we're going to be having some voicemails coming right up now. I want to let everyone know what's going on in the next couple weeks. I'm a teacher, as many of you who've been listening for a long time obviously know because I've mentioned it on the show. But for new listeners, this time of year, I try to focus on, with the podcast, always doing 4-a-month releases. So you're going to get 4 episodes every month. Occasionally, when we get into crazy times of the school year, like every job has crazy times of their year, anybody listening will go, oh, yeah, it's my busy time too, or, I have it at different times. We all get into that. There's some times where I've got to go a couple extra days in between releases because it's not just recording the show, it's preparing for the next episode, it's editing the show and things like that. All, parts of releasing a podcast. Well, our podcast, what we're going to have coming up is obviously we're going to be getting ready for the New 52. We have a couple interviews planned. We got League of Extraordinary Gentlemen we're doing, which is going to be part of our next show. And we're going to do that in a couple of segments, so that way there's other opportunities to talk about different things. A friend of the show, Ted Sikora, is going to come out. We're going to talk about Apama, which that's from Hero Tomorrow. For any of you who haven't had a chance to see that movie, it's terrific. But it's a great opportunity for us to talk about webcomic creation, because Apama's jumped into a webcomic, so we're going to have him come on and join us for a segment about that. Art Lyon, who is the color artist on the Project Superman Flashpoint tie-in, is going to be coming on the show to talk about that book. So we have these things planned along with getting ready for the New 52. Our plans for the New 52 is we're going to do every single number 1 issue. I don't know how many episodes it's going to take because we want to be able to give every issue the kind of commentary that, we feel that issue deserves. And some issues we're going to talk about quicker than others, not because of quality, just because, some, obviously we go off on tangents with certain issues because there's a certain character thing that'll, like, spark Jim and myself to kind of go off and have a debate. And other ones, it'll be just fun to just talk about them. So, we're going to discuss every single issue. My plan right now is that it's going to take us about a month and a half to do that, up to 2 months. We're going to just keep going episode after episode. And if there's an opportunity to do other kind of interviews and discussions along the way, we will. But we're going to cover every single number 1 issue. So I figure this will be good for people who are like saying, hey, I'm going to pick up these 5 books, but I kind of wonder what the rest are going to be like. So we can give some commentary on that and hopefully point people to maybe some titles that they might want to check out very early on in this New 52 thing. So we're going to do it very similarly. If you go back to the beginning of how our podcast started, we went through every single DC 1 year later title at the time. We're going to do the same thing with the New 52, just because we think this is a important point to kind of go through everything. And this will give us, Jim and I, a chance to talk about some characters and concepts that, first of all, might be brand new to both of us, but also might be ones that we didn't have time to get to on the show. We were focusing on other things, so it'll be kind of a chance to do kind of a good universe overview. So we're going to do every single one of those issues, Raging Bullet style. So that's what's kind of coming up down the road, just so you know.
Hi, Sean and Jim. It's Jack. Calling the show again. You guys have been doing a great job lately. I've been loving it. I've been reading Flashpoint and the tie-ins. I've read so far: Dead Man, The Flying Graysons, Citizen Cold, and Batman: Night of Vengeance, and the Green Lantern one as well with Abin Sur. And the Batman Night of Vengeance one, since I haven't read the 3rd issues of Citizen Cold and the other 2 that I mentioned. Batman Night of Vengeance was just beyond spectacular. The best one yet. And can't recommend that enough. And the books I'm picking up in September are Action Comics, Batman, Wonder Woman, and other two from the Marvelous competition that are written by Ed Brubaker and Mark Waid. I'm sure you guys know what they are. So, thanks a lot for a great show. And the other books I'm thinking of eventually getting in hardcover and trade probably are Red Robin and Batgirl. Had a great time reading some of those books. Thanks a lot for a great show, you guys. Bye.
Yeah, I'm assuming you mean Captain America and Daredevil, which are both excellent from Marvel. I'm a big fan of Mark Waid and Ed Brubaker as well. So those are books that I'm currently reading as well monthly. When you're talking about Batgirl and Red Robin, those have been two of, I think, the great Bat Family titles that have been out there. It's funny, I'm a Bruce Wayne junkie, but part of, as a kid growing up, I always liked the extended Bat Family, Batgirl, Robin, that whole family, Jim Gordon, that's why Gotham Central, when that was out, was such a terrific title for me, because seeing these characters spotlighted a lot of times, I think adds a sense of reality to that universe. So, and Batgirl by Brian Q. Miller was tremendous, so it's definitely one that I highly recommend picking up as well. So if you haven't read that one, for anybody listening, I think it's just a great book. It ended real well, so it's one of those, like, if you I don't know how much of it you read. I know you and I talked about this off the show, but I don't know how much of it you've read. But it is one of those that, like, it's very satisfying if you know Stephanie Brown's character at all, because it's clear that Brian Q. Miller knows the character, knows the character's history, and really bookended the series well. So for anybody out there, it's a cool one because, by the time you're done with this whole thing, if you've collected the whole series, you really felt like you got a complete story out of it, and I really appreciate that. Same thing with Red Robin. I can't praise that enough. Tim Drake has been one of those. I've read Tim Drake ever since he was a solo character. So to see this character now bookended as well in his book, I mean, knowing that we're going to be continuing on with him, obviously, in September as well, though, is really important to me. That's a character who I really hope gets a solo series again. Because to me, that's one of the things that I feel is missing from the 52 relaunch is a Tim Drake book. The longevity of that character, and it's shown. Tim Drake has shown staying power as a character. People are fans of him; they're behind him. They will follow his book if it's out and being published. So that's one that I am hoping we get in the 52. So anyway, thanks for calling in and sharing with us some of the Flashpoint tie-ins you're enjoying and things like that. I recommend that for anybody. If there's anything you want to shout out that you've been enjoying and reading that you want listeners to know, hey, you aren't reading this, pick up this book. I'm a big fan of that. And it is okay to shout out books that are Marvel and independents as well, because, I think we're all comic fans here, and it's good to let people know, hey, you should be checking out and reading these books. So thanks a lot for the call.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Jack one more time. I was calling to see what, if you guys actually read any of the books published by the competition that starts with an M. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, so I'd like to know if you guys read any of those books, what they are. Thanks. Bye.
Actually, this phone call is exactly one of the reasons why we did the segment that we did earlier, just talking about some of the books that we're reading right now outside of the DC superhero line, which includes Vertigo and things like that, but there are books that we read outside of there. I'm a big fan of the Stephen King adaptations that Marvel's doing, where they're doing The Stand currently. They did N in the past, and the Dark Tower series, I think, have just been absolutely visually stunning. It's great writing. For a fan of Stephen King's work, they're just, you can't beat them. I'm an X-book fan, so I'm currently reading Schism. I'm really enjoying that. I tend to typically pick up a lot of my Marvel books in trade or hardcover just because of time. A lot of what Jim and I were talking about earlier, with doing this show and following all the DC books like we are for the purpose of podcasting, and because we're enjoying them. That's, I do want to get that point across, that everything we do here, there's nothing that I pick up for this podcast out of obligation. I pick them up because I'm enjoying them. If I wasn't enjoying a title, I would drop it and talk about it on the show, why I'm dropping it, because I think that would be interesting commentary. My big problem with comics is, similar to everybody who listens to this one, is I don't have the budget and the time to be able to read all of the fantastic comic work that's out there that I'd like to read. So it's great on this show to be able to focus on a bunch of titles that I'm really enjoying and have great conversations about that. But on the Marvel end, you mentioned Wade and Brubaker. Those are two creators that I follow. Like Mark Wade's work, besides reading Daredevil, I'm also following Irredeemable, Incorruptible, which aren't Marvel, they're Boom, but I'm just saying, I tend to follow a lot of creators. I follow favorite artists, things like that, to their work. I'm a big fan of certain characters, though. I'm a fan of characters like Iron Fist, the X-Men. On the Marvel end, we're talking about Captain America. I've been really enjoying. I got to be honest with you, Captain America, I've had my experience with Captain America there's been a lot of runs that I've really enjoyed over the years. I haven't always read Captain America consistently. Same thing with characters like Fantastic Four, for example. Like, I read the entire Byrne run. There's been a lot of creators who've jumped onto Fantastic Four, and that's drawn me back to that book. I love the characters, but it's, budgetary reasons. I tend to follow creators to, like, the Fantastic Four, follow creators to Captain America. The U.S. Agent run, when he was originally introduced, when he was Cap, and Cap was actually the U.S. Agent character. I read all of that, really enjoyed it. Spider-Man I'm a big fan of. Spider-Man was the other character besides Batman that drew me to comics. I was a big fan of the Spider-Man 60s cartoon, the 67 one. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. And he was on a show called The Electric Company on WVIZ, which was our PBS station, so I enjoyed watching him on there. Saturday morning, Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. He's a character that I follow just as much, so I'm a big Spidey fan. Read Web of Spider-Man and comics like that when it originally was introduced. The Black Suit, I loved that in Secret War when that was introduced as a sentient being and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to follow Spider-Man a lot too. He tends to be in trade now, mainly because of the fact that it's easy to pick up the storylines. Marvel's trade program is something that I can pretty much so count on a lot of their top quality titles being collected in trade, which is why I tend to follow it that way. I know I'm going to be able to follow them ongoing, which I hope this is something that it sounds like DC's coming up with ways to collect some of the New 52 titles in that format. And I think that's going to be a positive benefit to those titles for people who want to follow some of them in trade. And I hope that's something that does happen, because I do think that there is an audience who likes to follow things in trade. And it typically is an audience like us, like me, where I'm like, okay, for budgetary reasons and time reasons, it's fun to be able to pick up a trade of this, a trade of that. But then if I get into it, I want to keep picking them up in trades and following them. So that tends to be what I do with a lot of my Marvel titles. I am reading some of them monthly, though. Like right now, I have Captain America's monthly for sure. I'm reading Schism. I'm going to follow that monthly right now as it's released. I'm going to be following also Daredevil, because I've always been a fan of that character, the Frank Miller run. But throughout the years, there's a lot of Chinchester was on it, and I forget who else he was on there with. But there was that cool run. I really enjoyed the book. Throughout the years, I followed him. Carl Kessel did a run of Daredevil that, if it's worth seeking out for anybody who hasn't read it, it brought a lot of fun back to the character of Daredevil. And I'm not saying he was happy-go-lucky or anything, but it was a great superhero adventure series, so that's one that I can highly recommend. I always liked the relationship of Daredevil with Spider-Man. I'm into superhero friendships, too, where there's characters you kind of see them like, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Human Torch, that type of stuff. I get into that kind of thing. So, it gives you the sense of like a real-world camaraderie. Because we all want to be friends with these heroes, so when we see them friends with other heroes, that's kind of that accessibility point of like, wow, hey, this would be like to hang out with that hero and all that kind of thing. So I get into that. Jim's talked on the show many times about character that he's read. The Hulk, Peter David. Obviously, I think a lot of Hulk fans, kind of go back to the Peter David run as one of those definitive runs. I want to read some of the Greg Pak stuff. I haven't had an opportunity to do that. That's something I'd like to read in trade and collected edition. Because I do like the character of the Hulk. I think he's very interesting. So, it's a character. I haven't read that, though. I did like Marvel's Iron Fist that they did recently. That series was a pretty good one. I really enjoyed that. I like the character of Danny Rand. I like Power Man and Iron Fist was growing up. I read every issue of that. That was a cool series for me. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question. It's kind of a quick route on that. I could do a whole podcast on Marvel. It's something Jim and I always toy around. If we had more time, it'd be great to do a Marvel companion cast of this. We just don't have the time to do it, or with the financial funds to be able to follow it as equally. But I'm a big fan of the Marvel characters and the creators. A lot of the creators, have been DC creators. Some of them, haven't been. But I mean, it's there's a lot of talent across comics, so there's a lot to love, and Marvel's one of them. So cool. And by the way, it isn't it's not any kind of bad thing to talk about Marvel on this cast. We're a DC cast because we're a fan of comics, and it really is the purpose of. There's a lot of podcasts out there that already cover all the comic companies. So we did the DC one as, purpose of giving you kind of an in-depth look, and even look at this show. We don't cover every single DC book. We try to get to as many as we can, and every so often we'll throw in a title and say, hey, look, we haven't talked about this in ages. We should really talk about this now. But, I think there's room for casts that are a little bit more focused, and there's character-focused casts and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why we did it. But we're not an anti-Marvel, anti-independent comics cast by any stretch. Please shout out anything and ask questions about anything like you just did. It's a great question. Probably a question that a lot of people have. No, it's, I'm a fan of Marvel. I know I think Jim is reading, some Marvel in trade, but I don't know how much of it is right now. Because, with Jim Case, he was a Marvel guy when he was reading comics, and a lot of the trade reading that he's doing right now, as he mentioned on this one, is, Vertigo titles and things like that he never read before. A lot of the DC, I know he gets a lot of the trade collections and omnibuses that DC publishes and stuff like that. So he's got a huge stockpile of classic DC stuff that he's experiencing for the first time. So, as a kid, though, I was very much so, I read Marvel and DC. And then as more independent titles came onto the scene, like Gru. I remember Gru, when Gru first came onto the scene, and it wasn't really with, a well-known publisher. Before it was with Marvel's Epic line. I remember picking up some of those issues and really enjoying characters like that. So, I could go on. My history with comics, is one of those where it's been very vast and very diverse. But Marvel definitely is a company that I really enjoy, and characters who I really enjoy, and creators who I really enjoy.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Bobby C., also known as Star Wolf locally on the forums. Well, many people have been talking about diversity in DC Comics, and I thought I'd say that diversity can be a especially tricky thing in the comics media, because for me at least, it took me years to realize that Linda Park, Wally West's girlfriend, later wife, was Asian, or Korean American specifically. Yeah, I didn't know until, I think, Wooded Magazine suggested casting Ming-Na Wen from ER as her, that I finally thought, oh, Linda's supposed to be Asian? Because before then, I had no idea. And occasionally that can just be a flat-out tricky thing to do if it's not specifically mentioned by the characters or in the text boxes. Talia is supposed to be half Chinese and half Arab, but it's hard to tell that. And Tana Moon, who was Superboy Connor's first girlfriend, I first thought she was supposed to be half black and half Asian, and then I think it may have turned out she was Hawaiian. I wasn't sure what her ethnicity was there either. Sometimes that's just a tricky thing if it's just not mentioned, and it might just be the nature of graphic novel storytelling. Changing subjects slightly, regarding casting Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, sounds good to me. Don't see the big deal. Maybe some people think they should have cast him as Ron Troop and just made Ron Troop the editor of the Daily Planet or something like that. But I don't know. We had a black Pete Ross and a half Asian Lana Lang on Smallville, so I'm not seeing much of a problem with Lawrence Fishburne playing Perry White. Finally, if DC wants to show the diversity of their characters, I have one suggestion, and that is bring in a character that they actually delayed reintroducing, a character named Sharif, who was originally in the very early 90s Superman comics called Sinbad. He was a teenager from Karak, the sort of DC go-to Mideastern country. He was originally going to show up in Superman recently, but they nixed that issue, as I'm sure you've heard of. And supposedly it was because it involves a cat being rescued from a tree. But just because they say that doesn't necessarily mean I believe it. So maybe DC can, show how diverse they are by taking the Sharif character, originally known as Sinbad, and put him, if he's young enough, into the Titans or another team and see what happens. So that's it. As I know, as everybody knows, diversity can be a very, very tricky thing, and political correctness doesn't make matters much easier. I mean, I don't know if it was political correctness or what, but in Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul was changed from Arab to apparently Liam Neeson. Of course, in that case, it looked like Ra's al Ghul was less a person and more of a title. That may have been what they were going for. Okay, as always, keep up the great work. Bye.
You know, it's funny, when you mentioned Pete Ross and Lana Lang from Smallville, that did not bother me at all. I didn't even think about, Pete Ross is black now. I think it was because, like Smallville, I kind of considered like I do like the Ultimate line at Marvel or something like that. It was a new telling of Superman. So in this interpretation, they were just making Pete Ross a black guy. And I thought he was great. I thought it was well acted. I thought he was a cool character. The relationship between him and Clark was stellar. So I have no problem with issues like that. And that's a great example of how you can add some diversity without really changing the concept of the character. I don't know that I would be a fan of them kind of going back and reworking it now, where, like for example, if they took Alfred and changed his ethnicity when they're not relaunching the character. But like when they do things like the Year One line, like Superman, I'm sorry, not Year One, Earth One. I'm thinking of Year One because I'm thinking of the Batman Year One DVD that's coming out. The Earth One line, like the Superman Earth One, making slight changes in there to characters because it's a whole new world, a whole new universe and all that. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's, if there's a storytelling reason for it, where you're like saying, hey, look, we could do this now with this character or something like that. And, there's a long-term plan. I think, I keep referring back to Micah with this when he talked about, his worry is creation of token characters. I think we're at a point right now where when companies like DC and just comics in general and creators in general, I think they've gotten to the point where if we're going to do this, we've got to make them characters that are of value and that they've got a story to be told. And I think that's a direction that we're going in with these type of characters. So, and you talked about characters that weren't launched and things like that. I'm not going to pretend that I know the whole story of what was going on with that character at the time. I caught bits and pieces of that from listeners who were posting things. If anybody has an article that they can send me as far as what happened there, I'd love to know, because I know that due to things that were going on at the time, they decided not to launch the character. Those kind of things interest me to a certain extent. They have to be very careful nowadays, because you don't want to launch a character that offends people, because then all of a sudden you get this weird backlash. And it's very tricky. You mentioned the trickiness of diversity, and it is very tricky because, Linda Park, I agree with you. I didn't recognize her ethnicity. Although, it's funny. I'd like us to see us get to a point where, comics are just naturally diverse and you don't have to worry about this kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's something we as readers all long for. Like, I want characters to be introduced and written because creators have stories to tell about them. I want the character lineup to be fresh and exciting with new and interesting character ideas. I love characters that are, from all over the world, from all different backgrounds. I constantly reference the Great 10 miniseries and things like All New Adam and stuff like that as examples of, characters with diversity that just had value and merit, that were introduced not because of the sake of diversity, because their location and their background and where they came from was interesting to explore. And it made that character interesting and relevant. So, I'm a fan of that. And I think it's something comics have been trying, all the time. It's up to us as readers, again, and I'm kind of a broken record with this. If we're enjoying a character with a new and unique, diverse background and that type of thing, and we like that, it's up to us to be ambassadors and let people know, hey, you need to read this. It's really cool. Blue Beetle is a great example of a character that, a lot of people loved, but the sales numbers got canceled. And I think that's just a neat and interesting character. And I'm hoping this time around that it gets a whole new audience. And he's one that I'm interested to see in particular. And I don't know why I keep thinking this, but he's one of those that I think has a digital lifespan, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's going to take anything away from his paper, but I just think he's one of those characters that seems video gamey and cool and digital. And I don't know. I just think he might have some digital legs in a way that might support and enhance his paper releases. I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with these characters as time goes on with them. Diversity is a hot topic right now. I find it very interesting right now to follow what's going on with diversity, to follow, some of the things that the fan reactions, listener reactions, internet reactions to DC's approach. I'm glad to see more positive creeping up out of all this. There was a lot of negativity when all this started, and I think that was because of the unknown. I think the more information and solicits that are being released, it's to the positive benefit of DC. So I'm glad that they and I think honestly, going all the way back to how this is all played out, I think it's been really smart to do a vague introduction at first, the way that they did, just to let people know, let people get over the shock, and then ease them into solicits about what's going on with the title and give more information out there, because I think it's given time for the long-term fans, which I think is where a lot of the resistance is coming from, and I'm one of them, where I was scared at first, to get used to this idea. Then there's that other flip side of me that have been like, man, it would have been cool, like the last issue of Flashpoint, to realize the whole line was being canceled, but they can't do that because of pre-ordering. That's the only bummer of the whole thing is the fact that we have to pre-order. If we didn't have to do that, it would have been very interesting to see what maybe potentially they could have done with surprises to this whole thing. And that's the one drawback in how we order comics and how retailers order comics and stuff like that, because obviously you want in September there to be more ordering than there normally would be in other months. So if you do a surprise, there's not going to be more ordering. So you have to, at some point in time, let retailers know and let fans know that, hey, you need to order these things because here's what we're doing. From a story standpoint, it's too bad, because I think it would have been super cool to have been just saying, hey, guess what? Flashpoint 5 is going to happen, and next week it's all brand, or, here's Justice League #1, and next week every title's new. I mean, that would have been, I think that would have been very interesting and fun to read that way. But I think, thinking about the backlash that would have had from some people being negative too. But for me as a reader, I think that would be something exciting. And it's unfortunate that they can't do stuff like that. But to me, I'm excited for this because of it. I like the whole diversity thing. It does have me interested. And again, I've said it on the show before. I see diversity very differently now in all this, that I don't just see it based on character, but type of title, type of storytelling, type of character. There's a lot of characters that are very unique and very different, have different powers, different premises, different stories. I'm excited for things like Fury of Firestorm, because you've got two. Every time I see a cover for that type of thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they doing with these characters? I think it's both. I love Jason and Ronnie, so I'm very curious to see how much of their backstory is still intact and where they're going from here, because it's clear that they're going to turn us on our heads with what we know about Firestorm, and that's something that I find interesting and fascinating. And so this whole thing's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Joel. I entered not this contest, but the last contest, and I felt bad. Like, I was one of the only 3 people, I think, that entered. But I do appreciate the Secret Six graphic novel, or trade paperback, I'm sorry. I'd never read it, and it was very, very good. And you have turned me into a Secret Six fan. Listening to you guys has been turning me more into a DC fan. I used to be more of a Marvel fan, but I'm just not into them so much anymore. But thanks to you guys in DC Noise and the fine people at DCBS Services, I'm getting the full 52-issue relaunch as the big package. I don't think I've ever bought that many comic books before at one time, ever. It seems like way too much to read, but I think it's going to be a great thing, and I wanted to support the service, or the industry, what have you. My one question, and I'm not trying to be a nitpicker or anything, but Flashpoint. I'm loving Flashpoint, and I like what's happening. The minis are cool. The main series has been kind of cool. Seems a little, like the pacing's a little off, like for my liking, but I have one question. How could Reverse Flash, like, I can understand he can run fast and he can mess up things, like, in our universe, like, because we all live on the same planet as far as we know. That all makes sense to me, but how in the world he runs so fast that Clark came from Krypton? Like, how did he change what happened on Krypton? Like, another planet far, far, far away. was being destroyed, and he came crashing to Earth, and how could he change where he landed on Earth? And that's the only point that kind of bugged me a little bit. Seemed maybe like a little bit sloppy storytelling, and they didn't really explain it because I really don't think the Flash can run or Reverse Flash. I don't think he can run that far into outer space and mess with their planet and change the date and time and area that he crash landed on Earth. That's my one little gripe about Flashpoint. Other than that, it's kind of neat. I really didn't think Elemental Lady or Woman needed to pop up in issue 4 either. That just seemed kind of like out of nowhere and for no reason. But other than that, it's enjoyable. I'm liking it. I'm getting back into the comic reading. 52 comics seems like a lot to read for me, but I'm looking forward to it. And Andy Kubert, man, you really can't say anything about his art. I've bought art courses off his dad from the Kubert School of Cartooning. They're amazing. Him and Andy, they're great illustrators. So I don't know. Other than that, keep up the good work. You guys are hilarious. And I don't know, DC Noise, I got to throw them in there too. They're hilarious. But you two podcasts have got me back into comics, and I thank you very much. Keep up the good work, and can't wait to hear more of what you have to say. Thank you.
It's funny, when you were talking about DC Noise, I'm a fan of their podcast, too. It's one of the nice things about the podcasting community. It's funny, on Down the Road show recently, he did an interview with Chris Hardwick, who is on Attack of the Show, and has his own podcast as well. And one of the cool things that he was talking about was the fact that the cool thing about the podcasting community, I think it is part of the fact that, it's not, for most of us, it's not something where we're making like money doing it or anything like that. It's more of a love, it's a fanzine love. It's kind of a fan outreach. We're not really competing for the dollars, if that makes sense, is that it's a community-based thing. So we have no problem shouting each other out, and there's not a competition. We do each other's shows when we're able to, and that type of thing. And I love that about podcasting. We'll call into shows when we're able to and stuff like that. It's hard often when you're running your own podcast to be able to go on the shows as much as you want to. But DC Noise, please feel free to shout out. And anybody out there, if you have a podcast and you're listening to the show, feel free to call into our show and shout out your podcast. I welcome that. This is a community here. And anything you're doing, webcomics, websites, blogs, whatever, that's you think is relevant to our listeners and you want to get the word out, please feel free to call in and do that. I do consider this community-based. And when you were saying that, it just kind of struck me. But I thought it was kind of cool that Chris Hardwick was talking about the same thing with our friends on Down the Road show, so that was neat. When you were talking about the contest, don't feel bad about that. Some of our contests are more successful than others. The whole point of it is fun. I'd rather have 3 entries and put them up on the website and everyone go look and, admire the work that our listeners have done. Because I think, any contest that we've ever had, every listener who has been kind enough to participate in them, I thought has, put something fun and interesting up there that has been kind of neat to have up on our website and just part of the community. This contest just happened to be a little bit more successful, the summer one, and I think because summer just has time for that. So I really appreciate all listeners participate in this one. The contests are fun. I throw them out for that purpose, and I don't care if we get one person that participates in them, as long as that person enjoyed it at the time. And then listeners who on the show maybe who didn't want to participate in it maybe get some value out of seeing what that or hearing what that person has done. So I always want to thank anybody who, at any point in time, even there's people sometimes will make cartoons and parodies and things like that for our website and just send them into the show for fun. Mike Sims, I want to shout out, a friend of the show, who has sent in cartoon parodies. I'm making up new words now. Parodies and stuff of Jim over the years. Bobby Bryant. I'm honestly, I should probably stop myself there because I'm going to leave somebody out if I don't keep going. A lot of friends over the years who've been kind enough to do that. Flashpoint. Here's the funny thing with that. We don't know what Reverse Flash did yet. So as far as is that weak storytelling or something like that, I can't imagine that not being revealed. Or maybe there's going to be a storytelling reason, like because he doesn't reveal what he did, it makes it harder for Barry to turn back time, if that makes sense. So I can't help but wonder, is what we don't know right now deliberate? Barry's already referenced the fact that he can't go back in time and fix this because he doesn't know. So we as the reader don't know what happened, what Reverse Flash did. But a couple things in your question. You were saying, is the date and time changed? I don't know that it is. We know that somehow Superman was moved. One of my questions is, like, if you look at miniseries like Project Superman, for example, there was a government community, a government entity that was exploring aliens prior to and predating Superman crash landing. So my question is, did they do something that set them off course? And was Reverse Flash a part of that? I don't know. There's evidently things that were going on that, you know, predate what we know. When did Reverse Flash do all this? There's a lot of those questions that need to be answered. I'm going to be curious to see what is answered in the final issue of this series. I don't know. You know, or is that going to be answered in Project Superman? We don't know yet what Reverse Flash did. I don't think that's weak storytelling. I think that's deliberate. I might be wrong. I think we're both making speculation here. And until we see how this actually plays out, it's a very hard discussion to have. Is it good storytelling, bad storytelling, weak storytelling, whatever? It's hard to do that without having the whole story there to know if maybe that we've been kept in the dark on purpose. And I think that is the case. We're not supposed to know what he did yet. But the going back through time for Flashes and changing events in time is something that they've been capable of. I do think that Reverse Flash did this on Earth. I may be wrong on that, but I think Superman's course being diverted wasn't a difference in date and time. His course was diverted by something on Earth or something in space that was launched from Earth, perhaps. And I'm making speculation here. Until we actually read it, I'm not going to know what happened. I want to know what happened too. Actually, you and I share the same questions. I can't say that I feel it's weak storytelling. I feel it's storytelling we haven't had yet. I can't imagine them not telling us. How can we not know what happened with Superman? Like, how did it crash in Metropolis? You know, how did it miss its mark in Smallville? Something had to have been done to divert that craft. And I want to know what it was. So it's going to be, did he change the revolution of the Earth so he crashed in a different spot? Doing the old Superman 2 trick. I don't know. I mean, please don't take any of this as written in stone. This is just me throwing out ideas. I'm trying to figure it out myself, but I don't know that that's weak. I think that's on purpose. We don't know how any of that changed. You know, why did Bruce's... I don't want to say things that are happening in Night of Vengeance. We know it's Thomas Wayne. So and revealing anything else for me would ruin that series for somebody else, and I won't do that because we're not talking about that right now. But there's obviously questions that you could argue about Thomas Wayne becoming Batman and other events relating to that. How did that change? So more than one thing changed. How did all those things happen? How were those events picked out? Those are questions that we all, as readers, still have. It's not just the Superman one. There are other ones that are there that have been set into motion. Why did the politics change for Wonder Woman and Aquaman? And are we going to know the answers to all those things? Or is it going to be, are those questions, the fact that we can't answer those questions, the fact that Barry can't answer those questions, is that the reason that it's going to be so hard to correct the world and put it back to the way we know it? Because he doesn't know exactly where that happened. Does that lead to the changes that we see coming in the New 52? That may be part of the explanation. I don't know. I'm speculating just like you are. It's a great question. I don't know that I feel it's weak storytelling yet, though, because we haven't seen the whole story, and we don't see how that wraps up and how much is actually explained and why. There might be a purpose for everything that you are saying right now. So I think it's too soon to really make that statement yet. You know, it could turn out that you still feel the same way afterwards, and if you do, that's absolutely right. I just, personally, for me, I feel like we're supposed to not know right now, because Barry doesn't. I feel like I'm journeying with Barry in Flashpoint. We know what Barry does. That's my take on it. So, and I think that's deliberate. I think that's done on purpose, and I feel like we don't know what Barry doesn't know. So that's kind of my take on it.
Hello, my name's Henry. I've been listening to the show for about 6 months now. I'd like to comment on the discussion we had on the final issue of Secret Six. I'm going to have to agree with Jim on this one. I read that book as if it was Bane's suicide attempt. The tactician in him probably wouldn't allow him to fully embrace it as suicide, so he had said there's always this option. This option is possible, but, you know, in his mind, he was setting up like a suicide attempt, you know, saying goodbye to your loved ones, he planned the trail, he had the venom ready. It's like, I foresaw this. I have vision for all of us. Ooh. So, yeah, this was Bane's suicide. This is Bane's suicide attempt. And that's how I read the book. I'm going to go reread it now, just to make sure I'm right. And, well, I can't know I'm right. But I do think it was a Bane's suicide attempt, and he didn't succeed there. How will that affect him in the future? We don't know.
Well, it's kind of funny because, and it's one of the reasons why I corrected myself while Jim and I were having that discussion and said that, I'm not really saying that you're wrong, I'm just coming at it from a different viewpoint. You got to remember, we're trying to get into a character's head based on comments that he's made. So we're psychologically trying to analyze his character and try to figure out what he's doing. I don't know that it was a suicide attempt, because I don't get the idea he was trying to kill himself, although I get what you're trying to say. Is maybe you mean when you say suicide, you mean that he was trying to go the route where he would cause the breakup and dissolution of Secret Six and get himself captured. I don't at all feel like Bane was trying to get himself killed. I believe that he was trying to distance himself from the Six and become a loner again. And if this thing worked with the Six, see, that's just it. And this is the part where and this is where Jim and I had the point of contention. I do think there was part of him that was playing off the scenario that there was a possibility they could win, and what if they do? And then what if his actual plan played out and worked? I do think what he was noticing, though, was things like Catman was getting in the way with his love for Huntress. And, every part of his plan was having things gradually that were getting in the way of him wanting to do it emotionless, detached, and really to take down his opponent in Bruce. So was he willing to kill that part of himself if he needed to in order to become strong again and do all that? Sure. I think it's a suicide of part of himself, if that's what you're getting at. And I do think that's a part of it. I think there's an element of that. I don't think that it was as cut and dry as that was his total focus, though. I think he was genuinely had both scenarios in front of him. I think he was under the assumption that one might, and at different times, I think when you think about in life, when we play out multiple scenarios that are possibilities, I think sometimes we lean more towards one scenario. And because these circumstances are playing out in a way, like when he's arguing with Catman, I'm sure he was thinking to himself, this isn't going to work. And then when he was flipping the other way and started to see things playing out the way, we had hostages and different things like that might work before the hero showed up, he saw it playing out another way. So I don't know. I'm sure Bane teeter-tottered all the way through it. He might have leaned more one way than the other, and I think, that's up to interpretation. So I'm not going to say you're wrong, because I don't think it's as cut and dry in that. And, it's not one of those arguments where I'm not going to all of a sudden go, you're right now. Bane was trying to end it all. I don't feel that way. I feel Bane is more complex than that. I think he's a planner. And I think he played out both scenarios in his head and saw the possibility of both options being possible. And he saw what his life would be like if either option worked. And, I think deep down he might have been leaning towards the way you're mentioning, where he was thinking that was what was going to happen. And that's the more I think about some of Jim's comments, maybe I'm leaning more that way a little bit too now. But I still, one of the things I've always liked about Bane is that I think he's a very complex individual. I think he often as a character doesn't get enough credit for that. And I do think there's a part of Bane that's a bit of a tragedy when it comes to life and emotion and seeing the possibility of a potential future with love and a family, things that he never had, when he was in prison all those years. And, if you read the history of the character, he's a lot more complex than he's often given credit for. And I think that was something that came out in the issue. And, it all goes back to, I don't know how much of Bane you've read, but I've read every story containing the character, and I thought it was really brilliantly tied up in a way where, depending on whatever our interpretation as a character and however much we've read of him and know about him, we could get something of value out of the story. And you obviously are very passionately in this way, and I know that you're wrong. I don't know that you're wrong to feel that way or not. I don't know that it really matters who's right or wrong on this. It's the fact that we enjoyed the story and got something out of it and started speculating. Because we are speculating about what's going on inside a character's head. And that's the real reality of the whole thing. And to try and say, I'm right on this one, you can't when you're speculating. It just doesn't work that way. I don't think the story is that cut and dry purposely. I think it is one that's meant to left you thinking. And I think that's always a fun thing that writers do, is they leave you in a place where you can kind of make your own interpretations. You know, she might, Gail Simone might have had one idea in her mind, but I also think, and it may be the way you're saying, maybe that's what she had in mind. But I do think one of the clever things about writing is they do write them in such a way where it leaves people thinking and lets them kind of take it beyond what they intended. And I've always liked that about her writing. She's always done that for me. So, like I said, not going to say you're wrong. Not going to say, I corrected myself, and I don't even think it's a matter of saying that Jim's wrong, but I firmly feel the way I do. I feel it's not that cookie cutter on the whole thing, and I think that's kind of the fun of the story. But thank you for calling, and actually, please call in anytime, any listeners, you, Henry, anybody else, please feel free to call in, agree, disagree with anything we say, and add something to discussion, because this is interesting. Henry, your comments are very interesting, because you bring in the whole suicide thing, and I wasn't even seeing it on that level, although I suspect part of what you're talking about is this destruction of the team as the suicide angle that you're talking about. But did you actually think Bane was going to die? And that was what Bane was going for. Because I didn't see that as being one of his goals. I saw Bane's goal as winning any way possible. So I didn't see him. I saw him seeing the possibility that he could die on the field. That, I believe, was on the table. But I certainly don't think he was going out there in a suicidal rage. I think he was going out there with the purpose of trying to win and take down as many people as possible. But then, like your argument, I guess, even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking the part when they jacked themselves up with venom and they ran out. That very much read like a Western where the characters are saying, hey, if we're going down here, we're going down fighting. So even on that end, I guess I can see where these characters, maybe as they were running into their last hurrah, really were, taken down the field where they were going to be potentially dying there when they were jacked up on venom. So I don't think there's more than one answer to this. So was there an element of suicide to this for them? Maybe there was. Maybe you're right there. But I don't think that was the only intention. I think there was a lot of different angles to this story from all the characters.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Now, Superman 714, Jim, this was the last issue of Grounded, the coup de grace, and I was really looking forward to this to see if some of my assumptions on where this was going were true. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how it was, but it wrapped up in a way that it felt right. I didn't expect. And I mean this as a compliment because, this woman that's been following Superman, I didn't realize what her MO was going to be or how she actually got to be the way that she is. But I love that whole theme that she got this way because Superman's depression that he was feeling during that time, because of the destruction of New Krypton. And also, I like how they brought in the fact that his father died shortly before that as well, which will put somebody in that place. Anytime you get a family member who's seriously ill or dying or something like that, it will put you in a place where you're off your game.
Yeah, and he definitely had some massive personal issues that would affect anybody. And it's good to see Superman actually feel this. And, it's the humanization of this man who's as powerful as a god. So it's, that was something that I really enjoyed through Grounded was, he, kind of was brought down to earth. It was we were seeing him, actually live a more human life. He explored the possibility of being Superman in private, and then we see why that's not going to work. We see him, getting, in a day-to-day issue, just a personal one-on-one with the, that war on drugs. They're like, hey, it's just going to happen again if you do the same thing, and just how he dealt with the dealers there. Or you can't run in and eliminate all the dealers. Well, you hit one problem at a time. You deal with this one section here, then bam, and you just keep moving on. The same thing with his domestic violence thing that he had. He had one kid that he was able to help, but it was still just that one personalized moment. And I really liked how he was just getting into it, and it was something that I was enjoying from Grounded, seeing that side of him. And I don't know, it was, and you're talking about how you didn't see the ending coming. There was some major shot. I was like, what? Oh, why didn't I see that coming? I'm an idiot. And you smack yourself in the head and go, oh, I should have seen that. And there was some stuff that completely played out how I thought they would play out. So it was just a great storytelling where there's mystery, but it was still comfort with it.
J. Michael Straczynski and Chris Robertson were the writers on this. Jamal Igle on pencils. John Sibal and Robin Riggs are inkers. Marcelo Milo? I don't know. I'm butchering the last name, and I really apologize because he did a great job on the color work. John J. Hill on letters. John Cassaday and David Barron on the cover. George Perez and Guy Major were on the variant cover. Will Moss, associate editor. Matt Idelson, editor. Superman, created, of course, by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Little side story on that. In Cleveland, they have the Siegel and Shuster, in Ohio, they should say, they have the Siegel and Shuster Society. And I went to go see a double feature of Batman and Batman Returns at the Palace Theater. We have a theater district where you can, you see plays and shows and things like that. And they were doing a summer series showing films there. And it was the classic film reel ones. But they were there promoting the signatures for the Superman license plates in Ohio. I am so jonesing for a Superman license plate.
And anybody in Ohio, if you're, if you didn't know about this, one, I found that at some of the local comic shops that I go to, they have the signatures there, so you can actually sign up and sign for it. If you're in Ohio, sign up for this. I think it'd be really neat to have the S on this thing, and then birthplace of Superman. 500
signatures are all they need. He's shooting for 1,000 because he wants to make sure, like if somebody didn't have their license plate or didn't have their driver's license when they signed, because the paperwork that they gave him required it looked like it required a driver's license and a license plate, your current license plate in order to do that. So I don't know why driver's license wouldn't be enough.
Well, because if you have a driver's license but you don't own a car.
Yeah, I guess so. You're right.
So they want you.
They want to know how many people will potentially buy the license plates.
Yeah.
But I guess he said it's pretty immediate. Like once he gets enough people for it, that almost immediately.
Well, he's got some politicians who've already said they will support this and they'll help it through.
Right. Well, I guess it's not that the 500 signatures are really all he needs.
Yeah.
And then it's up instantly. Like it's not something where you have to wait like months and they vote on or something like that. It's really once you have the signatures, it's a go. So it's good stuff. I'm excited. I want one for my car.
Yes.
Jim, jumping back into Grounded here, because we actually went and recorded our Flashpoint discussion, then we jumped back to Grounded. So now I want to jump back to this, and I want to talk about the art. This was Jamal Igle on the art for this issue, and I was really looking forward to this, because the Supergirl run that he did, you got to see what he brought to the table with that. And he's an artist ever since I first got to enjoy his work in Firestorm. I've enjoyed everything he's done, from Countdown one-shots to Supergirl, straight on through. When his name's on something, I know I'm going to get something special. But those runs of those particular titles, like Firestorm and Supergirl, were standouts for me, where I was like, woo.
His Nightwing stuff was really...
You know what? The Nightwing stuff, being such a fan of Dick Grayson, that whole motorcycle sequence, to me, it's really important with Dick Grayson to capture the coolness factor. That's one thing I like. You know what? I like that he, as an artist at the core, captures who a character is and demonstrates it visually. The character's personality. And that's really hard to do. It's not just about showing a really well-drawn version of the character. It's about giving us the character's personality jumping out on the page. And boy, did the art team capture that in this one, because this is an issue where we've been building in this storyline to this culminating point. So you don't get this just right, the whole storyline wasn't worth it. This one was. Oh my gosh, did this have a satisfying ending. That bit where you see Superman, you see, not Superman, you see the blur, which goes back again, the energy to the beginning of this whole thing when he was talking about how they see the world with Barry Allen, about, we're constantly moving through. Well, we're coming back now in bookending in this one where we see him swooping down, grabbing the suit that he gave up again. The suit, by the way. I want to say it again. After I see it in this one, this really...
This suit does, seeing it here, I will... Yeah. I'm a defendant of the new suit, but seeing him standing there, arms crossed, the cape kind of, flapping in the wind, who are you and what do you want? That, tough, just that look of... I'm here to, I'm done talking. Yeah. I'm done walking. I'm Superman. There's definitely, and it's also
confident,
but it's also kind of cool that he's hovering.
Yeah.
He's not on the ground, so it's again ungrounded. He's not on. He's Superman again, and you see just etched there, and it's there is something with that where I'm like, okay, this is cool.
I love Lois's reaction. About time.
Yeah.
But I like this bit where he lashes out with his heat vision, gets Lois away first, Which to me, this is a veteran suit. This is Superman. This isn't some new guy on the field. And that's why I like the hierarchy of distinction between heroes. I like when you read a story with a newer hero, a little more awkward, that type of thing. I dig that. I like those middle ground heroes as well. It means all the more than when you see a Superman who's been, like, he knows it. He's battled them all. You know, this is Superman, and this isn't Superman anymore who's divided. This is Superman who, he did his walkabout. He learned about himself. This is the journey I wanted to see him go on and culminate this way. I said at the beginning when we talked about Grounded, one of the things we said, we'd be very disappointed if it didn't reach this point. You know, if it didn't, there wasn't the payoff at the end to make you go, why did he do this?
Yeah.
What did this do for him? What's driving me nuts is now I want to see where he goes from here.
Yeah. This is one of those titles where I'm like, I am excited about the new stuff coming through, and I'm curious. I want to see what happens. But seeing this story play out, I'm like, oh man, I kind of like the continuation of this adventure.
I wonder what it's like to, you know, in his case, we know what a fan of Superman he is, and it's apparent on the page.
Yeah.
The amount of care and detail that he's putting into this, you know, is just really just apparent that, you know, like he loves Lois Lane, he loves Superman, he's trying to capture their personality, the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. Lois looks like that professional reporter, and there's a lot of emotion here between the two of them. You know, I'm going to jump around a little bit in this issue because there's so much of this that's really kind of striking me. When I talk about Lois and Superman here, they have these moments where, you know, he drops her off, and you see the familiarity between the two of them, where she just knows now that he's on the scene, everything's going to be okay. But I like that she tells him to be careful.
Yeah.
Recognizing that the villain that she's going up against has his powers.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that he needs to watch out for. And, you know, she's seen him die before. So there is that part of herself saying, hey, I want you to come home to me. You're my husband, you know, and that type of thing. I like that. That to me is a part of her. But I also like the confidence that later on when they're talking about that article, I love that Clark at first thought that she squashed it for him, and she comes back and says, I didn't squash it. I went and wrote it anyway. I wouldn't do that because it's the truth. That's who I am. And I love that he comes back with saying that, and I love you all the more for it. You know, that to me is, that moment for me was like, that's where, see, the marriage thing works for me. Because that's a different kind of storytelling when you've got the married couple and they've got to deal with that. How do you deal with conflict? How do you resolve that conflict? And they're not always going to be on the same page. I actually think one of the things that Superman needs is to see more of that. It's not whether or not Superman and Lois are married. It's the conflict between the two. Lois is not always going to be on the same page as Superman. She's a strong, independent woman. No real couple is ever totally on the same page. And that's where conflict arises. What keeps the couple together is how they deal with that conflict. And that's interesting if you show it right. This was interesting here, and this is a great example of how to use a married couple. Very well written between the two, and there's nothing boring about that. There's nothing that's edgy. Yeah. I like that. You don't want to see every hero like that, but man, does it work with Superman here.
And it's realistic, and it, you know, pulls you, you know, it pulls you in. It gives you a point of common reference that we would have, you know, and yeah, it's one of the things that I always. I you know, with the relaunch, you know, they're not having them married, and it doesn't look like they're even dating. You know,
they aren't. She's with some other guy. Remember?
Yeah. So there's all these factors going on, and I'm like, I keep telling myself, well, it's for the story. You know, we're going to eventually probably see that. We're going to see, and it's part of the coolness of everything you're talking about. It's the relationship, how they're dealing with this stuff. Where you know, it's a great way to do a character reference and really let you know who is the man behind the costume.
Now, if they're doing this as a way, because I thought I read an article, it might have been a Newsram or something like that, with Dan DiDio saying this is about showing why their relationship's important, why they're important to each other, and that type of thing. If this is about building up them as a couple again, and showing us why they belong together and what it means for them to be together, so you get more stories like this where you see their relationship, I'm all for that.
Oh, big time.
So I'm not against them doing that and then coming up with a way to say, hey, you know, let's make it so if we do remarry them, if we get them back together again, and we go that route, we have a real good idea of what that means for them as a couple and what that means for interesting comics with them like that. But I don't think that marriage is the kiss of death for a couple in comics. I think it can work. I think it can lead to interesting stories, especially with these two characters. This is a great example of that.
Yeah.
So I'm not against it. I'm not against what they're doing. I think it should be, though, for the purpose of developing and showing that. Even if it takes a couple years to develop to that point, where there's a time to do that, I'd certainly like to see how it gets to that point between the two. But I love this. I am the answer to the question you never wanted to ask. What you are is annoying.
Yeah.
And what you see it visually with the way he's kicking. I like when you get to see Superman let loose and get a chance to be super. He's fighting a villain here who can
take a punch.
Well, quote unquote villain.
Yeah.
Because she's not really responsible for what's happening to her.
Yeah, well, we find out she's not. And it's one of those things where we're not exactly sure who she is, what she is, until all of this finally plays out. Now, I do like seeing when Superman can open up and he can punch, but you can obviously tell there is still restraint, and that is always a quality of Superman where I like the fact that he doesn't just full on open up, full blast to her, because he recognizes there's other things, there's other factors. Like if he hits her full go, everything he's got, the building around them could shatter from the concussion. So,
was I the only one that forgot that there were people watching him? Like when he was saying, "I know you're watching me open the lightning door," I'm like sitting now. I remembered, like when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's right." But I got to be honest with you. When I heard him say that, I'm like, "Who the heck is he talking to?" Then as it progressed, I'm like, "Oh, dummy!" I knocked myself on the head. So I'm not saying it's bad on their part. This is me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot there were people watching." Did you remember that?
I did not remember it. You know who I thought it was initially?
Who?
Legion. I thought it was the
yeah.
Because especially the lightning door, I'm thinking, oh my god, Brainy, cool, they're pulling in Legionnaires.
I also thought possibly like Batman or the Justice League or something like that, because he's had those confrontations as well. So I thought it was one of his friends were saying that, and I loved how this all played out. I mean, so because it's so Superman. This is classic Superman. This is stuff like you were seeing in like All-Star Superman. Yeah. I love this is Ginchy Superman. Let's take her out of this place so now we can sit down and talk. And this is what I love about Superman, because it's not always about Superman punching stuff. Yeah. We got to see that. We got to see him overcome the odds. But now it's like, okay, how can I fix what's going on with you? How can I make you better? Reluctant leader?
I'm thinking very reluctant. Look how long it took him to actually do this.
What are you talking about?
I'm joking. Okay, before I get the emails, let me just stop. I am joking. Okay, these are some great Superman moments, and we talk about with Diana being more than just the Amazon warrior. She's the diplomat, the princess, the solving problems not just with punching, as you were saying earlier. And again, it's showing Superman. Superman's got his moment of clarity again. He is Superman again. He's no more doubt. There's no more head. He knows what he has to do. And right now, he's looking for the other solutions. It's not just about beating up the bad guy now.
That's where I see, and I think this is where you and I have got, we talked about how you've got a military definition of leadership. This, for me, because I don't have the military background, this is leadership to me when I see him in this moment, because he's making the decision to say, hey, wait a minute, I could beat her down, I could get her arrested here or something like that. Or I could go the other route and try to change things. I could try to fix things. I could try to make her better by a different example. The way he's handling this situation is an example to other heroes. Is an example of how, that you don't, it's not always black and white. He's banking on the shade of gray here.
Yeah. And here's the thing with me, and I'm not trying to cause an argument with
No, I don't mean that. I think no, go ahead.
I don't see this as a leadership moment. I see this as a hero moment. This is what a true hero does. They look for the other options. They look for something else, not just the straightforward ground and pound attack.
But in your chosen profession, in your chosen career, in your chosen line of work, if you inspire others by your example, aren't you a leader?
Yes. That's
the leadership that I see here. He's doing something that... How many heroes would do what he's doing right now?
Not many.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I see him as a leader. And no, you're not causing a negative... I understand what you're saying with what you're saying. What I was saying is I'm agreeing with what you're saying. Everything you're saying, amen. I think it's where you and I are always going to have that dividing line as far as how we see a leader. And that doesn't mean that one of us is right or wrong. So I'm not trying to get into saying you're wrong here. I'm saying this is how I see him as a leader, because and that's where sometimes people, like when they get down on Superman or they say Superman's not being written right or hasn't been. It's moments like this arc, and that's what I said in the beginning of this arc when this one started off. If it ends with something like this, where we get to see him man up and be Superman and take that heroic leadership moment where he does this type of thing, it's all worth it. Because we're showing us Superman right here. Go ahead.
And in a way, we are kind of agreeing on something, because for me, one of the strengths of a good leader is heroic qualities like this. These are the type of leaders I would follow, if they had this heroic quality. So it's, we are agreeing more than but we are arguing. It's funny, we argue and agree on the exact same moments. I think with us, it's just a phraseology thing.
So let's try this again. Who are you and what do you want? I'm looking at this page right now, and again, the confidence of Superman. We didn't. One of the things in Grounded is we saw him not having that confidence, and this was, and he was trying to figure out what was going on with him. We know that Sunstone was affecting him, but we also know that it was magnifying his feelings from those events. As he worked his way through all that and eventually got back to being the confident Superman that we see now, I love that we see that confidence from him, but looking at her, she's like, all right, where the heck am I?
She's thrown for a loop now.
What a great shot with her. Yeah. I love stuff like that.
That's a great, what's going on here?
Yeah, like she's half listening to him right now. She probably heard who? Yeah. And she's like looking all over there. As anyone would. But now, she pulls this out, and she's telling him, hey, this is what happened. Because you passed me by here, because these kids found this Sunstone, and I happened to be holding it at that time, I pulled in all of your negative emotion. It really is one of those issues where something that was never meant to be used by humans was used by her accidentally and ended up changing her in a way that was unexpected. And I love, that's just such a Superman story for that to happen. But Clark's solution was sitting here saying, well, you only got a piece of the puzzle. But before we even get to that, we then go and see why Clark was having the issues he was having. Because in his depression, he wasn't really hearing everything everybody was saying.
Yeah.
Like that one bit where, the people were saying, now, was this the same girl saying you are our hero? Or was it the people in the background? How did you read that?
I took it that the you are a hero is in the background.
Okay, and you are a gun.
And she's saying you are a gun.
Because you see the people in the background, like one of them's wearing a Batman shirt. I love that. I've seen that moment. These are people that care about the heroes, and they're all smiling.
Yeah, and
everyone in the background's like pro-Superman.
Because if you remember, when that scene first happened at the beginning of Grounded, there were people who immediately jumped to Superman's aid, saying, hey. Soup didn't hear the hey, guys. He only heard her.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to do when, one, depression sets in. You focus on one thing. You focus on the bad stuff that's happening around you. You can't see that positive. You can't see the light. And, he was dealing with it as well.
So now, she's sitting here at this moment and basically telling him that there shouldn't be a Superman anymore. And she's trying to convince him that, hey, this is it. And go ahead and destroy the gem. It's not going to matter for her.
Yeah.
And I love his solution of saying, well, we're going to use this then to give you the pieces that you're missing.
Yeah.
My hope. I want you to see what I'm really all about. And this is so great. You get to see the truth, the things that he learned from his father, the justice. This is the relationship that he has with other heroes, how they together inspire people. And the whole American way, and that's him. I guess making a positive impact with his life and making a life for himself. With the Daily Planet, with the things he does as a reporter to help with social change. There's so much to what Clark Kent does, and what he's able to do as Clark Kent, and what we do as people with the fact that the opportunities that we can have.
And again, it's the, what is the American way in Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Mm-hmm. Here, it's not American politics. It's the ideology that made America America. It's the whole, you work hard, you put your nose to the grindstone, you can make something with yourself. It's the, you see somebody down, you help them pick them up. You fight for, you see the injustice and you step up and say, hey, there's just the qualities of the American way of life. And I think that's, kind of showing him standing there. It's, him as Clark Kent. You got the, classic, American flag fluttering in the background. It's just that whole America is the strength. It's not our politics that make us strong. It's the people that make us strong. We are a country by the people, for the people, and that is the true American way.
Now, here's the funny thing when you're talking about that. I think our leadership discussion is actually a true example of this. It's kind of like religion. A lot of things are open to interpretation. Like, what is truth? Well, I think if we sat here and debated truth for hours, we might find at the end that there's a lot of things certainly we agree on that are basic beliefs as far as what the definition of truth is. But as far as what you and I consider truth, I'm sure there's probably going to hit some point where there's a little variation in how you and I see it. Justice, same thing.
Oh, big time.
The American way, the same thing. That's why I think, inspiring people to maybe make their own beliefs on that and I think sometimes in life, and one of the things I do like about the country we live in is sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but you have you're the right to have your own belief system and to develop that. I think sometimes people get in the most trouble when they don't have their own belief system. Their own code. I respect the fact that people have all kinds of different codes, all kinds of different religions, all kinds of ways. I think it's one of the cool things about this country, and we all respect that in each other. We kind of our leadership discussion with Superman, all the joking that you and I do about that one is a great example of this, though. I think because you and I clearly see leadership differently, and it's because based on experience, not because one's right or one's wrong. We just have different experiences with the concept of leadership. I think the American way is the same thing. I think truth is the same way. I think justice is the same way. And it's something that I think we can all agree on. There's elements of Superman that we all can agree are a part of those things, but I think there's also points of variation in how we see Superman. Yeah. I like that about that. I think it is a character that's open to some interpretation. It's kind of cool. So I liked seeing that bit where that stone burst, and I did not see it coming that she was going to be that Superwoman from the future.
Did not at all. No, that completely caught me off guard. I was like, oh my God, I did not see that. That is cool. And I really liked seeing him give out the signal watches to the other people that he's come in contact with, and even having him, Iron Monroe and with a live wire and just everybody, all these people that he came in contact with throughout this story. He's given them all the right
Super Chief.
Super Chief, who again, another cool character that they put into the mix, and it was something that I was like, I wanted, and it's funny because I wanted to see this continuation, this super team, this Superman family expand beyond people with the big red S on their chest.
Now it says fragments of sunstone fell on the earth like meteors throughout history, each containing the essence of Superman, his powers, his ideals. Is that a super chief with the essence of Superman running around?
Yeah, I think that's
there?
the original super chief.
In the past?
Yeah, in the past.
Because it says throughout history. So that would be
in the past. Because remember, if you think about Super Chief was talking about how the hero was in the past and this and and I think that's the original Super Chief.
Wow. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I like what happened with Lisa Jennings though in that whole bit.
Yeah, and she and again it was another cool swerve where she gets to keep the powers and she starts using them. And I thought that was a nice kind of again, a nice twist and a nice way to tell the story.
Now, Superman and his wife were back together then.
Yeah.
But I thought that she eventually, Superman did say that not even death could keep them apart, didn't he? They may have been separated from time to time, but they always found their way back to one another. Are they referring to Flashpoint? Or are they referring to something else? Like to some possible future where she dies? Or because we do know what happened with her and things like Kingdom Come and stuff like that. So what were they referring to there? Or were they being deliberately vague?
I think they were being... I actually, when I first read it, I thought they were going towards Flashpoint. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of a little tie-in nod to some of the changes that are going to happen, and eventually we're going to see them together and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know if that was part of let's keep things vague. Let's keep things where we're not making a commitment to a future story. Maybe somewhere down the line, someone will make a story where Lois dies, or maybe we'll get a story where Lois dies. And I don't know.
I love the way that Jamal had him wink at us.
Yeah.
But it was kind of breaking the fourth wall, but not because he also knew he was being watched.
Yeah. He was, yeah.
So it can be looked at two different ways.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I was a fan of that as a kid. I still like today when Ambush Bug does it every so often. You don't want to see it all the time, but it's every so often make me feel like make me feel like a kid again.
You know what? Come on, this is a comic book. You're supposed to have fun with it. And this is a great moment and a great time to do it. This right here, this is the end of this title, that we're going, rebooting everything. So this is the last issue. You can do something like this in this issue.
And make Superman feel like my friend.
Yeah.
That's a cool bit of that, too. This is really a very satisfying ending to this.
Yeah.
And, it was a story I was really... I don't want to say I was worried because of the New 52 coming up. Did they have to rush to the conclusion? Were we not going to see the conclusion as intended? I don't know if this followed the original, with the Chris Robertson coming out as well. I got to commend both Straczynski and Robertson, because I personally don't know who did what, but they really pulled this together for a satisfying ending. And the whole art team, everybody.
Oh, definitely.
This was a series that, and I also want to commend people like G. Willow Wilson. She was terrific on her fill-in issues that continued the world development of Grounded.
Yeah.
I think this was, to me, in the end, this story is only, and we said this, at the end of this, for me, this was very satisfying because of how it wrapped up. The build to this, because there was this payoff, this wound up being a very cool Superman story. Now, if there wasn't this payoff, I'd be giving you a very different tale right now. But I knew this right from the get-go. I'm like, this is cool if it goes where it should. And it went where it should. Yeah. Wow, was this satisfying. Was it for you? Did you get the same? Oh,
definitely. This was definitely, and I've been getting the hardcover, the Grounded as they're releasing them. Just, I'm like, I got to get these things. And
yeah. So it's good. So, yay for Grounded.
Oh, no, you don't!
Once again, our sponsors for this episode are InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. Remember, the DCB Service is offering that special deal, all 52 issues, $159.48 regularly, 50% off, only $79.74. And they're going to be offering a deal next month on the number 3 issue, so be sure to look out for that as well. And that's DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, make sure to pick up League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 1 if you don't already have it. $14.95 regularly, 38% off, only $9.27. I want to thank InStockTrades.com for supporting the show. Jim, on our next episode, we're going to begin talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. We also have a special guest joining us, which I'm going to wait to announce, where we're going to be having a chance to... Well, actually, I won't wait to announce. We're hoping to have on the creator of Apama, Ted Sikora, one of the creators of Apama, to talk about issue 2 of that webcomic. We don't get a chance very often to talk about people about webcomics and the creation of them. This is one that came out of the film, and we told him we were going to do a follow-up a long time back on his webcomic, and issue 2 has come out, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to transition from a film to that webcomic, and what the response has been to Apama. So we're going to talk about that, but our main feature is going to be also League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So we're going to see how much we're going to get through on that episode. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I'm thinking, might take 2 parts. So, knowing us.
Yeah.
We'll see, because it's a pretty... have you been reading it?
Yes.
It's a pretty dense 6 issues.
Yeah, I'm saying might be. It's going
to be a 2-parter.
Yeah, it's going to be a 2-part. Plan for it.
Yeah, so I'm planning... my thoughts are we're probably going to talk issues 1 to 3 on our next episode, and then we're going to come back and finish up with 4 through 6, just to kind of do it that way. That leaves us a chance for 2 other a segment on each episode besides it. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thenin guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just cough